All right, folks, welcome to the Fry My Calamari Show. Just making sure we're up and running and ready to go. Welcome to this wonderful March 25th, 2025, this wonderful evening. And it's another day of Ethan Klein drama. We have another video out from Noah Samsen, basically responding to all of the responses from the genocide enablers, I guess I would call them. But basically, all the creators and streamers that have been, in one way or another, propagating Israeli propaganda, enabling the views and the statements of Zionist propaganda, basically downplaying anything the IDF and the Israeli government does, while simultaneously saying they condemn those entities. It's kind of like a speaking out of both sides of the mouth, or both sides of the face, however that saying goes. But yeah, so basically what we have is, well, let's just jump into it, huh? Let's not beat around the bush. I didn't think of a really good opening statement for what's going on. It's kind of like, at this point, I'm honestly tired of the Ethan Klein drama, but I think it's really important to push back on it just because of the sheer number of people it's influencing. And now today we even have Elon Musk jumping into the banter and the attacks on Hassan via Twitter. And so, obviously the ideas that Ethan Klein is pushing is reaching a lot of people, and it's affecting the greater conversation around Israel, Palestine, and the genocide, the bad word that nobody's allowed to say. But anyways, Ethan keeps going, even though he's been told by his lawyers multiple times that he can't just sue people for condemning him and criticizing him. But he's still very trigger happy and would love to get a lawsuit going. And that's why I have this pulled up here. Let's see. So this other creator, Muta, I guess, is threatening a lawsuit, apparently.
Since I released my video...
Oh, golly. Let me get that pulled back up. Okay, so first, Ethan says, I'm so thankful that Muta is taking a stand against this insanity. And yes, we are in touch. Stay tuned. He has to make a big stink of it on Instagram, because nothing is going to materialize behind the scenes in real life. It's all for show. We've already seen this. He's been threatening lawyers for a while now, while also constantly defaming Hassan and other creators, calling them terrorists, blaming them for all sorts of stuff. Basically blaming them for October 7th, blaming them for Kamala Harris losing the election. Ethan Klein stubs his toe and he blames Hassan. But anyways, Mutahar, this was his post that Ethan was replying to. In the last couple of weeks, a YouTuber, Noah Samsen, has uploaded a few videos labeling me as a genocide supporter in the title and thumbnail of the video. Today, me and the team sat down to watch them and could not find a single clip of me supporting the Israeli government or any of its genocidal practice. Normally, I'd not engage with this discourse, but this has affected my business and has bleed into my personal life. Bled would be the word, I think. As a Muslim, I have always supported my people, and I've never talked about this topic with much political knowledge. Okay? That said, you don't need to be knowledgeable to stand against the injustices by the IDF. Journalists and civilians have recently been killed in a wave of attacks, ending a short lived ceasefire. That is never okay and needs to end, and I hope in my lifetime it does. In regards to Noah and his defamation, I never want to financially harm or bring a lawsuit to a creator, but slander like this is far too extreme and unchecked, which is at this time we are exploring legal action against Noah for defamatory slash slander, defamation slash slander. Okay, cool. You explore that, buddy. You do all. You and Ethan are like Lewis and Clark on the exploration of lawsuits and defamation. If they actually, if any lawyer like tells them that they have a case, um, I would be extremely surprised. I highly doubt that any lawyer would be dumb enough to tell them they have a case, honestly. Especially when you're a public figure and you say all sorts of things on recording that can certainly give people a reasonable cause to freely opine on what your views may be. So and let's see what Noah has to say. Let's see if there's a case to calling them a genocide supporter. I mean, they call Hassan a terrorist supporter. Let's make sure we use the same standards, and Hassan doesn't go and bring lawsuits against them, but let's see if the standards are the same.
The YouTubers who backed a genocide, there have been some developments. Ethan Klein responded to the video with an Instagram story shortly after its release, where he wrote, "God, these bread tubers are such pathetic fucking rats. When the fuck did I ever support a genocide? I criticize your idol Hassan, and you all resort to straight up character assassination and horrific lies. A campaign which resulted in the CPS call and harassment like I've never experienced in my 15 years on YouTube. Fuck you and fuck your movement. Socialism deserves better representatives." Soon after this post, Ethan brought my video up during his live show where he threatened to sue me.
So this fucking little scumbag here who put me and Mudahar, Turkey Tom, and Destiny in a thumbnail and said the YouTubers who backed a genocide. This is fucking disgusting. And I'm not okay living in this world where these little fucking punk ass scumbags can just say this shit and get away with it. Like accusing people, usually defamation can be all different types of things. Someone supporting genocide, we throw this term around a lot. That's one of the most, I mean, can you say something more fucked up about somebody than that? Sounds pretty defamatory. And again, I'm not taking any prisoners. If my attorney thinks there's anything in here, if he thinks that there's like a decent shot of defamation, I'm suing this fucking piece of shit, this little scumbag.
So he is threatening to sue me for defamation on the grounds that accusing someone of supporting genocide is messed up. I can think of something even more messed up than accusing someone of supporting genocide, which is, actually supporting genocide. I can't imagine that it's pleasant to be confronted with the idea that you might be supporting a genocide, so the instinct here to deflect and deny without even offering any sort of actual defense against the points is an entirely predictable response. This is how the liberal media class will operate in the coming decades when it's time to answer for their crimes of manufacturing consent for a genocide. They will simply say, "No, I didn't," if they say anything at all. Most of them won't.
See, that's a really good comparison, because most people, most people wouldn't claim that CNN or these different media groups are supporting genocide, but they most definitely are. And they're not doing it by going on the air and saying, "Yay, genocide, we support genocide, go Israel, get every last one of them," which is what Ethan and other creators pretend like that's got to be the standard, or I don't know what the standard is. Apparently, it has to be something along the lines of saying outright that you support genocide, which Destiny has done. But mostly the way these different uh, media outlets do it is by the things that they focus on and the things that they don't focus on. As Noah Samsen pointed out in his first video, it's through lies of omission. It's the things that they don't say. It's the way they make it seem like an even back and forth between this war between Hamas and the IDF or the Israel government, and it's like, no, there's an apartheid state going on with an open air prison, and when you have an apartheid state and you have the other people that are supposed to be equal or have their own state, whatever way you want to think about the proper solution is, uh, and you're trapping them like caged animals in tiny sections of the country. What happened on October 7th is a natural outcome to what Israel's been doing for the last almost 100 years. I'm not I'm not condoning any war crimes or anything like that, but the majority of people killed, I think it was like 700 or 800 people killed on October 7th, were IDF soldiers. So those are targets. Those are people that are in an oppressors in an apartheid state. They are the prison guards of an illegal prison, and they are valid military targets. It's actually uh, obligatory for anyone to fight against genocide. There's actually every country right now that isn't actively doing something to stop the genocide in Gaza is actually breaking international law. It's actually an international law that a genocide that's been defined by the International Criminal Court as a genocide. Uh, so therefore, since it's been identified as one, it is obligatory. It is legal. It's like the Good Samaritan law. Uh, the international community is required to act. Um, so, anyways, getting back to it, little side rant there.
It's happened throughout history. It happened with the Vietnam War. It happened with the invasion of Iraq. And it'll happen again with Gaza. What makes Gaza a bit different, though, is that unlike prior US-backed atrocities abroad, we all know what's been happening there the entire time. Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza has been called the first ever live-streamed genocide because we've seen the entire thing as it's happened with high-definition cell phone video. The mass destruction, the ruthless attacks on the healthcare system, the deliberate targeting of men, women, children, medics, aid workers, the intentional starvation used by Israel as a weapon of war, and then the massacres that followed that starvation when Palestinians crowded around aid trucks trying to get what little food Israel was allowing into the strip, the 20,000 slain children, many of them slaughtered with their entire families, the IDF terrorists recording and posting their war crimes, acts of humiliation, degradation.
This is constant, by the way. This is something that you can go online to the different what is it, Telegram, I think, is the platform that they use the most. I could be mistaken, but they're on Telegram, they're on Twitter. It's not hard to find these soldiers, these IDF soldiers, these Israelis posting their genocidal actions on a daily basis. The evidence is constant and the evidence is undeniable. And it's not covered. It is not covered. And if it is, it's downplayed. If it's ever covered, it's downplayed. But again, this is daily. And again, they blow up every infrastructure building in Gaza. It's very clearly designed not as attacking war targets. They've already cleared these areas, and then they blow up empty schools. They blow up empty colleges. They blow up empty hospitals after they've already partially damaged and cleared the area. So those things alone tell you what the intent is. And I mean, it's very clear. It's like, I don't want to like over explain what's happening. It's very simple, and it's very clearly ethnic cleansing or genocide, whatever you want to call it. Um, but it is definitely, from a legal perspective, an apartheid and a genocide. And those legal definitions do matter.
Their torture and rape of Palestinians, the full support of Israel throughout all of these atrocities, the vile, dehumanizing racism that is required to uphold a project like this.
I just think we need to kill them, every one of them, and that's it. And if not that, because the country will not let that happen, the government. Just the least we can do is just kick them out of our land, because this is our home, this is our land, and we deserve it.
What do you think about Palestinians?
That I hate them, and I wish they all died. We didn't stop, and we killed everyone.
You're gonna kill everyone?
Yes, yes!
You guys are animals. You guys are f***ing animal terrorists.
You killed 10,000 kids.
10,000 terrorists that would grow out to be the next. 10,000 kids that would grow out to be the next terrorists. That's how it is.
Really?
Because it's Palestine.
But I'm Palestinian. Does that mean I'm a terrorist?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want Palestinians?
This shit is sickening, and this is young kids. I know but it's not just them. It's everyone in Israel. It's just a fact, and it's not racist to say that. It's just a fact, and they're victims. Okay, they're victims of decades-long propaganda that has been dehumanizing Palestinians, and that's why it's okay with them, for them to kill every single one of them, to get rid of all of them. It's terrible. And, and then they turn around and call them terrorists, but they're perfectly okay with an entire genocide. So, yeah, it's for me to say one side is terrorist and the other side isn't. It seems like terrorism is going on both sides at the very least. And then once you come to that realization, you have to come to the next realization of, like, who has the power here? Who has the power to stop it? Who has all the bombs and the money coming from out of the country? It's the Western powers. It's the United States. It's Israel. They've always said that Israel is it's a giant military base for the United States in the Middle East. We want that area. We want to have control in that area, and we do it through Israel. If that wasn't the case, if Israel didn't serve that purpose, I highly doubt that they ever would have gotten the kind of support from the United States that they do get. Billions of dollars every single year to maintain their apparatus. They would be forced to find peace. They would be forced to make peace and take a different approach with the Palestinians if they were not getting gassed up by the West, if they were not getting funded by the West. But this is just horrible. This is just sad to see. And unfortunately, all the polling shows that this does represent the greater population of Israel. And it's not racist to say that. It's just a fact. It's just a simple fact, and it's due to decades of propaganda.
Palestinians in Gaza today?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
Oh my God.
We've seen all of this, which is why the whole "no, I didn't" defense doesn't hold up, because, yes, you did. We have you on video during this genocide that everyone saw, spreading propaganda that's been used to justify that genocide.
It's so vile to deny the suffering and trauma of the victims just because you need your heroes at Hamas to be perfect.
My friends, defeating our brutal enemies requires both courage and clarity.
I've watched enough Hassan to know that he's always said the heroes are not perfect. That's his whole point. It's Ethan that needs the Palestinians to be perfect victims. If not, then unfortunately he doesn't see any other options. Everything is a non-starter when you try to get to possible solutions with Ethan. So, he says he's a two-stater, but as far as how we get to that point from where we're at here, He doesn't offer any solutions other than what they're currently doing.
Clarity begins by knowing the difference between good and evil. And these monsters, they rape women, they burn babies alive. Many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil. They stand with Hamas. They stand with rapists and murderers.
The Gazan Health Ministry, which, by the way, Gaza Health Ministry is run by Hamas, terrorist organization. I think a lot of people are all too happy to not look too deep into these things. But again, Gaza Health Ministry is Hamas. There was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba.
We have you.
I'm trying to think of a time when Ethan has ever looked healthy. God damn. I'm sorry to, but the reason I think that's relevant is because if you can't take care of yourself on a basic level, like I just question his mentality and the weird way of which he goes about things and the way he obsesses over things. Like, he just inside and out does not seem like a healthy person, and sue me, if that's inappropriate or ableist to point that out or something, but I don't care. I think it's all related. I think a lot of times people that are ugly on the inside, it ends up showing on the outside. I definitely think if he took care of his health, his mental health and his physical health more, it would probably reflect in his actions.
You on video attacking and delegitimizing the only groups in the world militarily resisting that genocide, with arguments plucked directly from the US State Department, the #1 material supporter of the genocide.
Terrorist groups.
We have you on video attacking and delegitimizing the most prominent media figures in the YouTube space who have been advocating against the genocide and breaking down the propaganda used to justify it.
Hassan loves all terrorists.
We have you on video running defense for the primary architects of the genocide.
Yeah, like, don't talk about defamation, dude, when those are the kind of statements you make on a daily basis. Hassan loves all terrorists. He's a terrorist. Oh, like, what's worse? And then your statement, what's worse? What's worse than calling someone a genocide supporter or a genocide denier? Oh, I don't know. Maybe calling him a terrorist constantly. That could be worse. I think that could definitely be worse. Like, he just does not get it. He just does not get. He has zero self-reflection. Both of them.
The other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like
a really good guy. I would love to know who all the people are that are pissed about it. It's all Zionists. It's people that it's people that think he's a good guy. Those aren't good people, and that's clearly who she's consuming her media from to get those opinions. They both carry that opinion.
So Trump quoted.
Well, he was like a moderating voice in the war room.
Yeah.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
We have you on video attempting to.
That's the guy that they said was a nice guy. And then Hila tried to walk that back or tried to apologize for it. But it was a very half-assed apology, and it was basically just kind of saying she used a wrong word, but they basically doubled down on what they were saying. Basically that, oh, well, comparatively, he was still a moderating voice. And it's like, if that's what you consider a moderate voice, which that's a genocidal act. That man was calling for the total siege of Gaza, cutting them off from food, water, fuel, everything. And he said, we're dealing with animals and we're going to treat them accordingly. Okay, that is direct genocidal action and behavior. It's not just words that he said, because he had the power and he actually directed that action to happen, and it did happen. So that's genocide. And then Ethan and Hila were directly supporting that man. This is why we call you a genocide supporter. It's very simple. And this is just one example of how you guys do that. Now, I know you tried to walk it back, but basically, Ethan has doubled down on it every time. Because he's like, oh, yeah, whatever, she shouldn't have said we like him or whatever, but he was a moderating voice. It's true. Ba-da-da-da-da. It's like, okay, dude, ride on that. Ride with that statement, because that's exactly what we're talking about when we say you're a genocide supporter.
Portray the perpetrator of that genocide as some kind of beautiful, free, diverse, democratic state.
We're planning to go to Israel in June with my parents and all the kids. It's going to be such a great trip. And I'm actually really excited to go there. I want to show you guys.
You haven't been there in so long.
It's been a long fucking time. What I want to do is show you guys how I see Israel, because you don't see that. When you listen to Hassan and you hear all these fucking mega lefties talking about it like it's some super racist, crazy, like Jim Crow style of society. Like, I can't wait to show you guys how beautiful, how multicultural, how free it feels for people, or just it's a beautiful place. It is. It's one of the most diverse.
God, he sounds so fake and just so full of shit. How beautiful it is, just how great it is, how diverse it is. When they left Israel, they lived there and they left. All they did was talk shit about the place. All Ethan did was talk shit about it. Now suddenly he's in love with it? That's really fucking weird timing, dude. It's really weird. I don't understand how you can keep promoting Israel when it's committing genocide, which you claim to be on the opposing side. It just doesn't make sense. He's a walking contradiction of himself.
Places I've ever been.
These people all seem to believe that in order for someone to back a genocide, they need to look into the camera and say, I support genocide. I think it's good. More of that, please. And while we do have examples of certain parties to the conflict here doing just that, like Destiny and Asmongold,
I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people.
I'm pro-genocide. It sounds really shitty, but I think that Israel should just draw its fucking borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place.
The most common and effective way to back a genocide doesn't look like that. Mainstream Western outlets don't say those Palestinian kids deserve to be killed. No, they say that some kids died when bombs dropped, that Israel says it was dropping on Hamas, which is a US designated terrorist organization. The mainstream Western media doesn't say that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza. They simply quote the death tolls as being reported by the Hamas, aka terrorist-run health ministry, and then report uncritically the IDF saying that most of them are soldiers actually, and soldiers are terrorists by the way, so who's to say what's actually true? The mainstream Western media doesn't say that Yemeni children deserve to die because they're all Houthi terrorists. They simply cite the Houthi-run health ministry, aka terrorist-run health ministry. So when the US and Saudi Arabia kill those children, it's a sad event in the overall morally righteous fight against terrorists. Terrorism is bad, remember, and terrorists are the bad guys. So if some kids died while they were going after terrorists, I guess that's just war. We saw the same response of "no, I didn't" from Mutahar of the large YouTube channel Some Ordinary Gamers. When Hassan Piker shared my video on his Instagram story, Mutahar responded to this post writing, "I get watching other people's videos is all you're really good at, but try vetting out slander before promoting. I have never defended or backed the Israeli genocide on innocent Gazans. Never will I ever." Following this, there was a bit of a back and forth. Hassan responded to Mutahar on Twitter, writing, "In your only video on Gaza, you admit to not knowing about politics. You try to cover Israel-Palestine as drama slop for a centrist audience. You defend Asmongold for his inferior cultures and genocide comment, then attack pro-Palestinian voices." Mutahar wrote back, "Yes, I do admit to not being an expert on the topic. I didn't cover it as a drama since it isn't one. Serious situations with dead people and attacks happening every day. I just don't downplay rapes and sugarcoat violent organizations like you. Also didn't defend Asman in vid." Later, Hassan wrote, "We were a year into the genocide here. This was your only video on the topic. It downplayed and ran defense for Asmongold's takes, while the bulk of your commentary revolved around how evil the pro-Palestinian streamers were from clips you compiled off of snark Reddits." Mutahar's final response was, "It's almost as if the bulk of the commentary matched what the video was titled and centered about, Twitch allowing violent and unfiltered rhetoric from your camp on its platform, the clips were actually sourced from the creators who streamed them. So what do we make of this exchange? Well, first, Mudahar denied covering the genocide as drama, but that's exactly what he did. He has never once uploaded a video covering this topic, except for when that coverage was filtered through a smear campaign that was making the rounds in the commentary community about a content creator they all don't like. You know, Hassan Bad.
Yeah, that's like your DOA with your shit right there. If this is the first time you're talking about it publicly, if this is the first video you're making on it, I doubt you give a shit about any of it that's going on. You're just seeing an opportunity to dogpile on someone you don't like, and that is what's informing your position. And then you're just cherry picking the same out of context clips that have been farmed and put together by Destiny and his crazy people that spend all day clipping Hassan. It's just a hate campaign, and you give yourself away the moment you put a video out on a major geopolitical conflict going on, and this is your first video, first time talking about it. No, you should not be taken seriously. Like, no one should give a shit. The only people that give a shit are going to be your own fans that already, love you, and that's it. But you know what you can do by trying to farm hate from Hassan, so that's why you did it. That's why it's got 1 million views.
He denies defending Asmongold in his video, once again making no effort to actually defend himself on that point. But that's also false. Mudahar whitewashed Asmongold's comments further than anyone else, really. He went so far as to change the content of what Asmongold actually said to make it seem like he wasn't talking about Palestinians when he was.
In this situation, one could, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion.
Even Asmongold himself admitted that that's what he said when he apologized. This is why he was banned.
Literally says Palestine in his apology. But if one were to extend the ladder of charitability, when he said they deserve genocide, we can actually we can just say he meant something totally different. He was talking about just the leader of Hamas. And that's not downplaying or defending what he's saying one little bit. Meanwhile, Hassan interviews someone that's not even a confirmed terrorist, and if he is, the terrorism is doesn't even involve murder. It involves kidnapping the captains and crew of ships that are in some way related to Israel, either coming to or from Israel or owned by an Israeli business person. That's good. That they are actually following international law by doing something to try and stop the genocide. They're actually following the law. And so them and Hezbollah are, unfortunately, those are the only people, the only military groups anywhere that are standing up to Israel against the genocide. So that's actually following the law. And you guys call it terrorism. But what do you call what Israel and the U.S. is doing when they're killing all of the civilians in Israel and killing all the civilians in, what about the West Bank? What about all the civilians in Lebanon? What about all the civilians the U.S. killed in Iraq and all over the Middle East? Is that not terrorism? Is the United States not a terrorist group because of that? I mean, I'm just asking questions here.
Now, whether Mudahar stands by this characterization of Asmongold's genocidal rhetoric or not is a different question, but he did do that, and the record shows this. His video is still uploaded on his channel, you can go watch it. Denying this seems to be just indicative of a lack of reflection on his part. Entirely predictable, but worth noting nonetheless.
Twitch is a disgustingly evil platform. And of course, this is all having to do with the Hassan hate campaign, and it's his first time ever talking on the subject of Israel and Palestine. And yet, does he have anything? What about like the actual Nazis that are all over Twitter? Does he have a similar video saying Twitter is a disgustingly evil platform and it should be shut down because of the stuff Elon Musk is promoting and all the Nazis that are on there? I mean, that is kind of the double standard that they have. They seem to be ignoring all the right wingers and actual Nazis and trying to make Hassan out to be much worse. Much, much worse. It's very interesting.
No, I didn't. Defense is the expected response from centrists and liberal Zionists alike, but I don't know how well it'll hold up in court. I didn't back genocide. How could you say that? I just sat silently the entire time it happened, except for the one time I spoke up, which was actually to attack pro-Palestine activists with bad faith smears that originate from a community of openly genocidal Zionists.
I'm pro-genocide.
They're terrible people.
Best of luck to you in your legal endeavors should you pursue them. I don't know how well that'll hold up, but have fun, I guess. In his last tweet, Mutahar seems to deny his participation in the smear campaign, writing, "The clips were sourced from the creators who streamed them. This is false." Mutahar did not source these clips from Hassan's stream. He sourced these clips directly from the smear website. He cited the website out loud and said, "Go check it out, guys."
There's a website known as danclancysucks.com, where it goes through a treasure trove of some of the most popular streamers on the site. One of the most popular political streamer, Hassan Piker.
As we went over, this website is a compilation of out-of-context clips and arguments attacking pro-Palestine creators that openly embraces the support of genocidal Zionist organizations like the ADL and genocidal Zionist politicians like Richie Torres. The community from which all of these allegations originate is that of a content creator who says things like this.
He is interviewing the guy who's about to go do some shit to get himself killed, basically. That's what's...
I was about to say that that website, which is a clear campaign to smear Hassan, and it isn't just talking about it on your stream or on your video. It is an entire website built not only to take down Hassan, but to take down the platforms that he's on, because they don't want to get him, a 30-day ban or, any sort of temporary ban whatsoever. They want to shut down the entire platform. It's ridiculous because it's like, Hassan can go to whatever platform he wants. He can make his own website. He has enough of a following to where he can go anywhere and he'll maintain a following. But they want to legally, they want him legally defined as a terrorist. And that's why they're really going balls to the wall on this campaign. But my point is, like, once you've gone to that level and you're building whole websites to take this person down, it's a little more than just, criticism or critiquing someone online. And then the second you start farming all your clips from this website, you lose credibility because you're not actually watching Hassan to decide for yourself. You're not actually watching full videos. I'm not saying you have to watch his whole 8-hour stream, but you could watch shorter videos, 5 to 10 minute long videos of where these supposed clips are coming from. That way you can see what he actually means and get the full context. But of course, they never do that because they don't care what the full context is. That's not the point. The point is to just jump on the hate wagon, farm that hate, and farm responses from it, because nothing gets viewership and nothing gets clicks like hate. It's one of the most depressing realizations about the internet and the way that algorithms have been designed. Hate does well. Hate is a good thing, and we see a lot of horrible things resulting from that ability to farm hatred on the internet, to make money off of hatred. It's something that I think platforms in general should do more to fight against, and stop giving positive reinforcement to hatred that's just for the sake of hatred. But anyways, yeah, like I said, like you lose credibility once you're like going to a hate website for your information on somebody. Like, that's not an unbiased approach whatsoever.
It's gonna happen. We know from this point that's what's gonna happen. So he walks away, gets back a little bit, and then he sets up behind this thing, right? Is this concealment, I guess? Not cover, concealment, right? Because I think the tanks.
Okay, this is really gross. I watched this stream. This was a total fan fiction of Destiny just watching these people waving a white flag and get shot. Making up this whole story about they were told not to go over there. There's a tank right over there. Da 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 da. He just was making it all up to make it seem like it was a scripted fake scenario, but he had no evidence. He was just saying this is a hypothetical way that I could pick this apart. I'm not really saying it's true, but he was implying that the whole thing is fake and scripted, and then that people are like, what are you saying? It's fake? He that the man wanted to die? And he's like, no, I'm not saying it's fake. I'm not saying he wanted to die, but he probably knew he was going to get shot at, and it's like, he just made up all the details around it, and basically said it's their fault that they're getting shot at while waving a white flag. It's just so ridiculous, and it just everything about it, to the tank, to them not supposed to be walking that direction or going over there, everything about it, he's just making it up. It's ridiculous.
Over here. So now he can capture the footage right here. He sees the guys walking, knowing that they're about to get shot, because that's what's going to happen.
Knowing they're about to get shot, because that's what's going to happen. That's not... You have circular logic that doesn't make any sense.
And then eventually they get shot, and everything is... This is it. It's like Act 1, 2, and 3. It's like all here. Now this guy is down. He's dead. These guys are like...
and fatally wounded.
They're not even running. They're not even like cowering and running away and screaming in fear. There's like, okay, well, they did it. We got our shots. Okay, is this guy done? Oh, shit. Well, okay.
They're not even cowering. They're not even running away in fear. Yeah, they're trying to get their friend. They're not pussies like you would be, just running away. They're trying to save their friend's life. They don't know that he's instantly dead. They want to try and save their friend that just got shot. That's what's happening. And they're used to that sort of stuff happening. It's sort of par for the course in that area. So they're not cowards. They don't just run away in fear. They try to save their friends. They try to do what they can. It's such a... Oh, this is fake because they're not cowering and running away like I would do. God, it's so stupid and ignorant.
Well, we brought the white flag, so we can put that over the bleeding part, assuming he got shot in it, actually, right?
Flag
and then this guy, what, is this guy running back to...
Then implying that the white flag is being used to cover the wound, as if, like, maybe he didn't really get shot. Maybe the wound is fake. It's so ridiculous. It's like, no, if you have a cloth available, you're probably going to use it to try and cover or stop the bleeding, right? Like, I can't even see. I've seen this video before, but like just his words alone, I can break down the logic. Like, oh, they're using the white flag to cover the bleeding wound. That's convenient. It's like, no, that's basic logic. That's exactly what anybody would hopefully be smart enough to do in that scenario. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Grab the wife?
By this stage, the man's wife, his widow, has heard what happened.
And like, what does this mean? The wife has heard what happened. Like, bro, this is crazy. I'm sorry. The tracking live movement shot of the lady running up to her dead husband? Like, what is this?
By this stage, the man's wife, his widow, has heard what happened.
Somebody went back and told her, right? The 5 martyrs that walked forward, you know, your husband was the unlucky guy. He drew the short stick today, so come forward, cry for us on camera. Do you think the guy intentionally wanted to get killed? No, I don't think he wanted to die. I don't think they were thinking they were going to die, but they probably were hoping to get shot at, or maybe, so you're saying the woman was acting? I don't think the woman was acting. She probably was sincerely sad. Her husband got fucking killed.
But you just implied that. You said that they told her to come forward and cry for us. You're implying the whole thing's fake and scripted, and then when someone in your chat tries to get you to clarify that point, you backtrack immediately on it. What's up with that? That's This guy is just so full of shit. I don't know how people don't realize that. It looks like his own chatters can see it pretty easily.
But I think they were farming TikTok clips. I mean, remember, these people, not these people, I mean these people, actually, yeah, like have suicide bombers. So it's not that big of a stretch to imagine that they would be willing to get shot. However, now I haven't gone down this road because this is...
He's just grouping Palestinians in with like ISIS and every other Muslim radical group, and it's just they're not a monolith. I don't know how many suicide bombings have you heard of since this conflict started? I haven't heard of a single one. And don't you think Israel would love to point that out in the media and point out the crazy suicide bombers? They don't have Gaza. The Palestinians or the Hamas does not have suicide bombers. I don't think that's a thing with them. If it was, I think we would have probably seen that by now. It's like, is anything he says not bullshit? It just seems like it's all based off of like general Islamophobia, and if you have these same Islamophobic views, you're going to agree with him probably. But it's like any sort of critical thinking would tell you that he's full of shit. He's talking about suicide bombers, and that is not a thing. These just look like regular people trying to live their lives.
Way more, it would require me to make a lot more assumptions, but it's also possible he didn't get shot, right? Now, do we know the name of the guy? Is he actually dead? Do we even know if that's his wife? These are a whole bunch of questions that would be valid. Now, if I was way more on the pro-Zionist side, I would be asking those questions. Who is this guy? Do we even know if he's actually...
If I was way more on the pro-Zionist side. So, I mean, I guess that is an open admission right there that you are a Zionist, at the very least. Which I don't know if Destiny even denies that. I just know that because of the stuff where he said he's pro-genocide, and then the getting busted for being a sex pestany, that's why Ethan has kept it on the DL that he's been in communication with Destiny, like nonstop. And I don't care what anyone says if they try to say there's not proof of that. He's been caught communicating with his Discord. I'm pretty sure it's been leaked that he has DMs with him, like frequent, and he says he doesn't even talk to the guy. So, I don't know what's in the DMs, but the fact that he says he doesn't talk to the guy and the fact that there are DMs, lets you know he's lying. And then he had his two most current collaborators. He has contact with them. He had Lonerbox on the show, who is Destiny's most recent collaborator, and he had some sort of contact with Dan Saltman as well, I believe, or maybe it was just DMs with him as well. So yeah, there is some guilt by association there, but I know it's because of certain comments like this, and like I said, the whole sex pest thing. Ethan won't publicly admit that he gets a lot of his info and talking points from Mr. Destiny, Mr. Sex Pestiny.
Fucking dead. Like, we don't actually see the wound, right? It seems like they don't have any problem showing anything else. Like, why just the white flag so that it can look all bloody? Like, show us the actual gunshot. You have no problem showing.
Probably because they're stopping the bleeding and they're not worried about like showing because it's not a propaganda piece. It's not scripted, dude. Like, what you expecting them to come up to the camera and like spread the wound open for you? You'd probably say, "Oh, that's AI or something." Like, you would just make up some more dumb shit. Oh, really? They're walking up and showing us the wound? That's so convenient. That's so scripted. Like, that's what you would say. It doesn't matter what they do. You're gonna downplay it, distort it, and lie about it. And that's why we call you a genocide denier and a genocide supporter.
Other violence, right? What Pallywood means is that you're capturing intentional video footage to sell a certain narrative about what's going on, basically. So Pallywood might be, this, right? So the idea is that like 4 innocent civilians are like walking up and you just want like a clip here of the IDF shooting them for no reason because they're civilians with white flags. And you kind of ignore the fact that like, okay, well, they're in a battle zone in an area they were told to evacuate from, and they're going back to try to release somebody that was captured. Like that's like Hollywood, I think. You're essentially provoking the enemy to take.
Is there evidence for everything he just claimed? Is that proven? And either way, if they're walking with a white flag, do they deserve to be shot and killed? Jesus.
What is largely a justified action, and then trying to say that it's like indiscriminate civilian killing. It's like a setup. It's not fake, but
It's not fake. It's a setup. You contradict yourself. It's innocent people getting killed. That's what it is. To say that what he just saw was justified, even if his little fan fiction version of it was true, which I don't think it is. It maybe there was some details to that I didn't hear about, with them trying to get someone released or something like that. Even if that's true, just shooting them is not justified like that. That is definitely not. They are on their land.
they're doing it to themselves.
Speaking of that guy, Destiny, the genocidal Zionist sex criminal video game streamer, he also had a crack at responding to my video where he made some interesting points. Destiny criticized my characterization of the 2018 Gaza border protests as being overwhelmingly peaceful by citing instances of violent actions that protesters took part in during the 2018 border protests, or the Great March of Return, which were recognized by human rights organizations as being overwhelmingly peaceful.
Overwhelmingly peaceful. Just as a quick thing, because people love to talk about the Great March of Return, the peaceful March of Return. All of this is like the peaceful Great March of Return. Remember this, okay? This is all the peaceful Great March of Return.
Now, when I used the word overwhelmingly in my video, I used it as the word is meant to be used, which is to mean overwhelmingly, which means what the word means, which is to a very great degree or with a great majority.
Overwhelmingly.
Some instances of violence during these protests do not contradict my use of this word. The protests were overwhelmingly nonviolent, which is exactly what the UN report found.
The protest camps set up along the fence can make you do a double take. In parts, they look like a community festival, a carnival, a fair, like a distant cousin to Burning Man. Women prepare falafel sandwiches, barbers give haircuts and trim beards. Lip syncers and dancers perform in the shade. Actors ham it up playing cruel Israeli soldiers. Families come with their children.
Ultimately, though, regardless of how the protests were characterized overall, the reason I brought them up in my video was as evidence that Israel has a history of intentionally targeting Palestinian civilians for slaughter. That's what the UN report found. Israeli snipers intentionally targeted medics, journalists, men, women, children, elderly people, and disabled people. Cite whatever instances of property damage, tire burning, flag planting, rock throwing you want. These are irrelevant to the fact that Israel intentionally targeted thousands of civilians with sniper fire. The commission interviewed an international journalist covering the demonstrations at the Malika site who described the scene that day. What was notable was the amount of injured people and the slow, methodical shooting. Every few minutes, you would hear a shot ring out and you would see someone fall, and then another shot and another person fell. It went on for hours. I saw a man who had been shot in the throat. I didn't see it happen, but I saw the immediate aftermath. He was covered in blood. I saw a man who had been shot in the head. There was a constant stream of bloody bodies being carried back towards the ambulances. It was surreal and endless. It became almost normal. It was happening so often. A shot, a person falling, people carrying the body away. The number of wounded was astonishing. I couldn't say how many people I saw who were shot because it was so high. I have covered wars in Syria, Yemen, Libya, and I have never seen anything like this. The slow, methodical shooting. It was just shocking. Presenting this fact is only a one-sided history if you think intentional civilian targeting is somehow warranted due to other unrelated instances of violence, which definitionally cannot be true. This is, of course, if we're taking international law into account, but Destiny's a Zionist, so that's not high on his priority list.
I'm pro-genocide.
Destiny has had similar Israel glazing-induced English language difficulties in the past. He had this same response when Norman Finkelstein brought up the 2018 border protests in the Lex Friedman Israel-Palestine debate early last year.
In 2018, there was the Great March of Return in Gaza. By all reckonings of human rights organizations and journalists who were there, it was overwhelmingly nonviolent. Along the Gaza perimeter, there was Israel's best trained snipers. Correct?
I don't know best trained. There were
But
snipers.
Fine.
Snipers.
Okay. All right.
The
Because
editorializing
hey,
support.
laugh. It's hilarious. The story's so funny.
You're lying about
It's
the Great
so
March of Return
funny.
had aspects
Okay.
of violence to it.
Okay.
According, even the UN says it themselves.
Okay.
But you only collect what the UN says that you like.
See, the problem, Mr. Morelli, is you don't know the English language. You don't
I can read from the
Did you
UN
hear-
website
did
itself.
I
In regards
say-
to the Great March of Return,
Please
they said,
stop with your
while the
idiotic-
vast majority of
with your
protesters have
idiotic-
acted in a peaceful manner,
No, listen to what
during
he
most
said.
protests,
Did-
dozens have
did you
approached the
just
fence,
agree with
attempting
me,
to
Mr.
damage it,
said the
burning
wall-
fires,
Did I
throwing
say
stones, and
overwhelmingly
Molotov cocktails
nonviolent?
towards Israeli forces, and
Okay.
flying incendiary
Okay.
kites and balloons
Okay.
into Israeli territory. The latter resulted
Yeah,
in
but-
extensive
but
damage
you
to
don't-
agricultural
you-
land and
okay.
nature reserves inside
Okay.
Israel, and risked the lives
Yeah,
of Israeli
because
civilians. Some incidents of
Mr.
shooting and
Borelli-
throwing of explosives
Yeah,
have also been
talk
reported.
fast,
I'm
so
just
people
trying to-
think that you're coherent.
I'm just
Notice Destiny's retort to Norm.
Hey, he called him out perfectly there. Talk fast so people think you're coherent. Yeah, he's ignoring his own words. The vast majority were peaceful. He said it in his own words, but he ignores that part and emphasizes the small incidences where there was violence. Oh, throwing some rocks and some Molotov cocktails compared to a bunch of snipers headshotting and killing tons of people. It's slightly different. And one is probably a response to the other.
Norm's description of the protests being overwhelmingly nonviolent is that there were actually aspects of violence. This is not a contradiction. Overwhelmingly means overwhelmingly.
عمري 16 سنة صوبت في يوم الأرض تاريخ 30/3 يوم الجمعة. كنت على الحدود الشرقية في رفح. كان في آلاف المتظاهرين والمتظاهرات شباب وفتيات ونساء وأطفال وشيوخ. وصلت على الساعة 9 صباحا. بدينا إنه أول ما وصلنا قعدنا شفنا وين رح نقعد وبعديها رجعنا صلينا الجمعة ورجعنا أنا وصاحبتي. لما وصلنا لقينا كل الشباب راجعين كلهم لورا ما حد متقدم. فمسكنا أنا وياها إيد بعض ووصلنا نقدم قدامهم وأجوا باقي البنات صاروا يمسكوا إيدينا والشباب صاروا يهتفونا ويشجعونا أكثر مشان نقدم أكثر. كنت أمسك الأعلام وأغرسهم وأقرب أكثر وأكثر. غرست العلم ومسكت علم ثاني وصرت ألوح فيه. فالاحتلال يعني ما عجبه هالمنظر يعني. طبعا يعني كنت انا محروقه يعني من جوا كنت بغلي يعني تعرف شوفي كل الظلم اللي انت بتعيش كل يوم. كنت من الاقليه الموجودين يعني كنا بنعد على اصابعي اللي قدام. وانا قدمت كثير وكنت بعيد عن اليهود اقل شيء 20 متر. لما لوحت في العلم سمعت صوت طلقات صابت صدمه يعني كابوس. أول ما شالوني وقعت على الأرض بعدين شالوني ثاني مرة ودوني على الأمبلاس. كنت يعني بدي أنام كنت وجع كتير.
Now you find it so far-fetched. Israelis purposely, deliberately targeting civilians? That's such a far-fetched idea. An overwhelmingly non-violent march. What did the UN investigation find? Brace yourself. You thought it was so funny, the idea of IDF targeting civilians. It found, go look this up on your machine.
I already know what you're going to say. You're
It
going to say it found that
targeted
only one or
children,
two of them were
targeted
justified
children,
killings.
Targeted journalists, targeted medics, and here's the funniest one of all. It's so hilarious. They targeted disabled people who were 300 meters away from the fence and just standing by trees.
Zionism's crazy because it kind of backs you into a corner of having to defend the indefensible. And I don't know, if you're as shameless as Destiny is, that's not really an issue.
They're doing it to themselves.
But for most rational human beings, you see someone arguing that and you say, oh, that's an insane person. And that's the high ground we have on Zionism. The more people understand the truth, the less people are going to be publicly willing to defend these crimes. Destiny later nitpicks my comment about the media's use of terrorist designation in articles. Before covering the attack, these outlets always, of course, make sure to mention Hezbollah's US designation as a terrorist organization. Don't worry, guys. They were just terrorists. Nothing to see here. We got the bad guys. They were bad. We are good. Mission accomplished.
Relying on a U.S. terrorist designation is retarded. But you don't need to do that. You could just know what Hezbollah is, which is like a paramilitary militant group that's funded by fucking Iran that now has like seats in the fucking Lebanese government that is like hostily taken over the southern part of that country, right? You could just know that. You don't fuck a U.S. terrorist designation. But we're gonna start simping for them now? Is that what we're gonna do? Okay.
They literally exist because of Israel's attacks on the Palestinians. That is their purpose, their sole purpose of existing. They wouldn't have a need to exist if it wasn't for Israel.
Even if we're going to explore the reasons why this terrorist designation is to him not illegitimate, it only reinforces the circular logic of the terrorist label. You don't have to call them terrorists to know that they are terrorists. Just look at what they do. They kill civilians. They violently overthrow governments. They take over entire countries. Okay, well, the US does all of those things, but it isn't on the US designated terrorist list, is it? Israel is US backed, the US being, by the criteria we just looked at, a terrorist state, but they're not on the list either. It's almost like these designations are selective and used to reinforce US imperial hegemony. Oh my god, no way. What?
These subhuman, Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging, white dipshits, like Noah too, will sit here and fucking...
See, he has all this heat for, like, the left, and he has all this heat for the terrorists over there because the U.S. has labeled them as terrorists. But you know, if we're talking about raw numbers, we're talking about raw terrorism by the amount of like death, destruction, and torture handed out by a terrorist group. The United States takes the cake. I mean, we won the Emmy for most terrorism done around the world, and the fact that you selectively call one group terrorists and just automatically call the U.S. and Israel the good guys, I mean, you're just giving the game away at that point. And you are actually the terrorist supporter.
defend Hezbollah, which is what he's doing, as like a legitimate governing party. Hassan, the terrorist supporter as well, who is also very white. Don't ever be mistaken by his background or the way he looks sometimes, depending on what he's trying to present. Hassan is also one of the whitest people in the West, okay?
One of the whitest.
The way he tries to look sometimes, or the way he looks sometimes, what a very strange thing to say.
People in the West. He's one of the whitest people in the West, folks. You've never seen a whiter guy than this Hassan guy. Ultimately,
I gotta look at that picture. I mean,
whitest people in the West. He's one of the whitest.
Just look at that guy. I don't think anybody is as white as Destiny. I mean, that is just... Hey, at least he was trying to get some sun at that point, right? Probably the first time in his life.
People in the West, folks. You've never seen a whiter guy than this Hassan guy. Ultimately, we don't need to take people like Destiny seriously. Zionists criticizing Hezbollah is not doing so in good faith. Obviously, he is a Zionist. He supports the genocidal Israeli regime and opposes resistance to it, which is what Hezbollah is. The group exists as a response to Israel's repeated colonial killing sprees in Lebanon, which are not terrorism, apparently, because Israel's the good guys. So he's not a person we need to take seriously in any of these conversations on what needs to be done. That's the sort of criticism trap here on YouTube. You know, a guy who isn't a part of your movement criticizing your movement. I don't like having to even bring him up. I honestly just like that white boy's clips. I thought it was funny.
One of the whitest people in the West. Subhuman, Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging, white dipshits.
So I'll look at some more of this stuff in future video responses. I'm going to split them up point by point and see if we can dive a little deeper into these topics. I think that has potential to be worth it, but we'll see. Today, though, I want to look at just a few of the common arguments I saw from Ethan Klein, his supporters, and other participants of this campaign. And because this video is more influencer drama focused, I'm going to take that opportunity to do a sponsor now. That's when I'll do them, when I'm talking about random internet micro celebrities, for as long as I need to do them, which hopefully isn't much longer. Support me on Patreon to make them stop. There's been an escalation in the trend of crackdowns over free speech and the right to protest in America. The US government and intelligence agencies have the ability to deploy warrantless surveillance against anyone. This is done through things like Section 702, geofencing warrants, sales emails to data brokers, and national
sure to
security
go
letters, all of which are
and
used by the
subscribe
government
Mr.
to
Noah
bypass the
Samsen's
judicial
video.
system to monitor your communications. Basically, if big tech has access to your information, so does the US government, which is an issue if you want to be protesting that government. This is why I'm excited to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Proton Mail. Unlike the majority of other email platforms, Proton Mail is end-to-end encrypted with zero access encryption, meaning that emails from non-Proton Mail accounts are encrypted with your public key before reaching your inbox, which ensures that no one but you can access them. This keeps you totally immune from data breaches and surveillance. Most popular messaging apps offer this kind of end-to-end encryption, but many major big tech email services do not, like Gmail, for example. Proton Mail allows you to create email aliases whenever you sign up for new websites to hide your real email address, which you can easily deactivate if they're ever revealed in data breaches or start receiving spam. They offer other helpful features like email scheduling, tracking link blocking, and inbox cleaning. Switching to Proton Mail is really easy. You can import past emails seamlessly and forward Gmail messages to your new Proton Mail address, or you can start fresh with a clean slate. It's up to you. Proton Mail has over 100 million users and is 100% funded by customer subscriptions, and all services are completely ad-free. They operate out of Switzerland, where they benefit from robust privacy laws. Proton got started with a public crowdfunding campaign and is owned by the Proton Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to ensuring privacy and data protection. Sign up for free using my link at proton.me/Noah Samsen to protect your privacy and also support the channel. All right, back to the video now. In this Instagram story, Ethan asks the question, when did I ever support a genocide?
When did we ever back a genocide?
I'm sorry.
When? Like, show me.
I have an answer to that. Let's go over it once again. Ethan Klein was the primary signal booster for the smear campaign against pro-Palestine activists that was orchestrated by a group of openly genocidal Zionists during the active genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Every point raised in his content nuke video was borrowed directly from Destiny and his community regarding Hassan's alleged terrorism support, his alleged anti-Semitism, and his alleged extremist views.
Hassan uncritically interviewed this kid for about an hour. It was the most brazen display of disgusting terrorist propaganda that I have maybe ever seen in Western media. Okay, fine. He likes Hamas, he watches their propaganda, but he's not going to deny the violent rapes that took place. That is way beyond the pale.
Ethan himself, in this very stream, reveals that he is aware of Destiny's comments that openly endorse the genocide of Palestinians.
The only person he's probably not defaming here would be Destiny because of his comment about, he said, I believe in genocide. He said, I think, and during one conversation, like that the Palestinians should just leave. So if you're talking about defamation, that's like an easy out, right? For legally speaking.
So that's one way to back genocide, is by functionally collaborating with an openly genocidal Zionist who you know is openly genocidal on a video that reached over 3 million people exclusively using arguments and out of context clips that were compiled by the community of that openly genocidal Zionist. The other major way that Ethan backed the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza with his video was by spreading atrocity propaganda narratives that the Israeli state, military, and its backers in the West have used as rhetorical justification for their genocidal actions. This backing precedes Ethan's content nuke, as he was one of the first major content creators to spread the 40 beheaded babies hoax.
They found 40 dead fucking babies at this kibbutz where like tons of people got killed. Now, I don't know if they were beheaded, okay? And some people really care about that detail. So to me, the 40 babies is enough.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
A false claim that he has yet to rescind or apologize for making. In the content nuke, he
never happened, was never shown evidence of it happening, was never shown pictures of it. Everybody's lying about that shit. And when they're lying that bigly, when they're doing lies that huge, that massive, right off the bat, right from the rip, right from the jump, you have to question everything they say after that. You know, and it's like they question everything Hamas says, even though the death counts, the body counts always end up being more than what the Hamas says. Just like regular death counts usually go. You know, it takes time to find all the bodies. Sometimes all the bodies aren't found. It's a hard thing in that situation to accurately count them all. But after going back when UN and other independent organizations have checked on their numbers, they've found to be accurate. So there's no real reason to question those. On the other hand, the claims by Israel are constantly accepted, even though they've been outright proven to be lies constantly. And their propaganda is so bad. Like they still act like everybody in the West and the United States just believes everything they say, and I guess a certain group of people still do. But the way that they put their propaganda out with no evidence and with tons of evidence showing the opposite, it just ain't. It's not convincing at all anymore to anybody with any sort of critical thinking ability.
Doubles down with this sort of propagandizing for the state of Israel by spreading the Hamas mass rapes hoax. He cited the documentary from Sheryl Sandberg that relied on testimony made under duress in Israeli detainment centers and unverified claims from witnesses.
Earlier this year, former Facebook executive Sheryl Sandberg produced a documentary that was screened at the White House and on Capitol Hill.
Last year, Hamas committed horrific acts of sexual violence. Sheryl, I thank you for all your work to bring to light the horrors of this issue and for your film about what happened on October 7.
The way that Sandberg proved her case, shockingly, was significantly through the use of coerced interrogation videos. The documentary, of course, won praise in the pages of the New York Times and is, to this day, sitting on the White House website. The White House website now says, quote, "Preventing and responding to conflict-related sexual violence is a top priority for President Biden and Vice President Harris. Since October 7th, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and our entire administration have consistently condemned Hamas' horrific sexual violence. On June 17th, the Vice President hosted an event at the White House, which included a panel discussion and remarks by advocates and survivors of CRSV from around the world, and a partial screening of Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, Screams Before Silence, on Hamas's sexual violence on October 7th. Now, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, and Physicians for Human Rights Israel all rejected the use of hostage interrogation videos in the months after October 7th. And most news outlets chose to reject their use as well, citing the likelihood the confessions were extracted by torture. Sheryl Sandberg, the White House, and Hamas have all gone a different direction.
Now, my point about this propaganda claim seems to have been misconstrued by some viewers of my video. The claim in question is not that rapes occurred, rather that Hamas systematically weaponized sexual violence during the attacks. This was the claim spread by mainstream news outlets like the New York Times and used by the US government and the Israeli government as a pretext for blowing up occupied apartment buildings to target low-level Hamas commanders.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like no one's saying that no sexual violence happened on October 7th. It's highly likely, highly possible. But if you're going to claim that mass sexual assault was used and weaponized by Hamas, you need to have some evidence to back that up. And it does matter. It does make a difference because it's another way to dehumanize, because if you take away all of these extra things, these like war crimes, if you sort of take away that element and you don't emphasize it as much, or it isn't as big as it's being made out to be, you start getting down to, and then when you look at the fact that the IDF executed the Hannibal Directive, which is where they kill their own civilians and their own soldiers in war so they don't get taken prisoner, because obviously they don't like the prisoner situation. They would rather kill their own people, their own soldiers, their own civilians, and then they can blame that death count on Hamas rather than Hamas actually getting soldiers and them having to, take care when they're bombing. It makes it harder for them to sheet bomb, to carpet bomb Gaza, because then, the public knows that they have hostages and they're expected to take some protection, some precautionary efforts when going into Gaza. Not that they go into Gaza, they carpet bomb the place and then go finish off buildings in the rubble once they've already killed everyone and moved everyone out of the area. But yeah, it's I don't know. I wish I could go on a rant on this.
UN report that was
all day.
released and cited widely by defenders of Israel as evidence that this is true says the opposite. The mission team was unable to establish the prevalence of sexual violence and concludes that the overall magnitude, scope, and specific attribution of these violations would require a fully fledged investigation. Ethan's citation of the conclusion to this report, point 86, that there are, quote, reasonable grounds to believe that conflict-related sexual violence occurred at several locations, does not at all verify the claims made in his video in the central piece of evidence which he cited for it, which was Sheryl Sandberg's propaganda film.
What happened on October 7th was mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
Nor in all the places that systematic sexual violence was alleged against Hamas, which it was many.
So it really matters in the dehumanizing of these people, because once you take away this narrative that she's talking about, and once you factor in that the IDF was killing its own people and its own soldiers, you start getting down to a death count that just looks like they were targeting the IDF. And they were just targeting primarily the soldiers that are holding them in their open-air prison. And if the narrative is too close to that, it starts looking a little too justifiable. So that's why it's important for them to push these narratives that everything she just said was a lie. Mass rape, essay, whatever we're supposed to say. I don't know why we can't say grape. I don't know if we can or we can't. I don't care at this point. I'm not big enough for it to matter. They have to push that narrative, even though every aspect of it's a lie, because they need to be able to dehumanize these people. They need to make sure that every act that they do can be considered terrorism. Now, they did kill civilians. They took civilians hostage. Hamas did commit war crimes that day. So I don't want to act like they didn't. And I do condemn them for those war crimes. In the same way that I condemn the U.S. and U.S. soldiers for war crimes when they go into an area and indiscriminately kill people. Yeah, that's wrong when that happens. But they want to overblow this narrative of them doing more war crimes than they actually did, because they cannot have the narrative of them being a defensive force be the case. They cannot let that narrative come to the surface. That's why it's important to push back against these lies, because it helps them dehumanize the Palestinians.
Places, mainstream places. This conclusion also does not contradict anything Hassan has ever said about October 7th. In every clip cited in the video, Hassan is talking about the systematic rapes claim.
The systematized mass rapes that Hamas dealt on October 7th, not a single bit of that has been verified.
The clip that was cited repeatedly by Ethan, what he seemed to think was a smoking gun,
downplaying the violence, specifically the sexual violence, which he's done a lot of.
Doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. So that's the other part of this problem that many people that can't contend with. Like, the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not like so good. They have magical bullets.
Ethan's presentation of this clip is dishonest, though.
It doesn't even matter. None of this justifies that Palestinians have a right to dignity, a right to emancipation, a right to live.
Yeah, he's not saying the rapes don't matter. He's saying it doesn't give Israel the right. He's saying it doesn't matter in the context of Israel's right to commit genocide. Okay, so even if sexual assault took place on October 7th, it doesn't matter. It doesn't give Israel the right to do what they're doing. That's just the bottom line. That's just the facts. It does not make him a terrorist supporter. I believe the same thing. I've just said that I condemn the war crimes and any sort of terroristic act or tactics that were used by Hamas. It's not hard to do. Come on, baby.
Fucking free lives, free from this occupation. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if fucking happened on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
Hassan isn't talking about sexual violence in a vacuum. He's talking about it in relationship with something else, in relationship with the struggle for Palestinian liberation. It's like saying that it doesn't matter if rapes occurred during a slave rebellion. That doesn't change the dynamic that slavery should still be abolished, which is an entirely uncontroversial statement, if you're against slavery, of course. Some noted that the UN report called for further investigation into these alleged crimes, and that's true, it did. However, further investigations have been repeatedly denied by only one party, and that party is Israel.
Why not put the responsibility and blame the atrocities quite simply on the perpetrators and say it was Hamas who did it?
When I accepted the invitation from the government of Israel, we had...
Why not just say what the narrative that we want to push? Why do you need to investigate it? It's funny how Israel doesn't want investigations into anything going on in Gaza. They don't want any sort of press in there unless they can control what's recorded and what is said about what is recorded. They have to control the narrative completely. This is one area where I gotta say TikTok is really helped. A lot of these apps that allow people to post without getting censored has been able to show us what's really going on in Gaza. Not that you can't tell from the press pictures that we can get, where you see an entire miles and miles and miles of leveled city. There's no way you can look at that and think that it's anything but terrorism. You don't need to completely level a city like that to hit your military targets. It's very clear that they're trying to level the city, like completely destroy everything.
A number of meetings, and we discussed the parameters and explained clearly the purpose of the mission, which was only for the purpose of gathering, analyzing, and verifying information.
But still, it is pretty clear who did it after talking to survivors and hostages returned, right? It wasn't the Belgians who did it. Just, I mean, it's pretty clear.
I understand the frustration of the people of Israel. I mean, like, I was distressed when I came to Israel because I saw a traumatized nation. So I understand the frustration, but I think it's up to your government to give access, and that's one also of my first recommendation.
What's interesting is that Ethan has showed some level of skepticism for these sorts of allegations before, but
it's insane to me that they want them to complete an investigation without actually investigating. That's what she was demanding on air. Like, why do you need information? Why do you need to verify anything? We're telling you what happened. We're telling you who did it. And it's like, you're basically trying to do manufactured consent. Like, you're trying to tell someone to do manufactured consent live on television. I don't even think she realizes that's what she's doing, but it is exactly that.
Only when the victims were Palestinian.
Palestinian females freed from Israeli detention said more than 15 fellow Palestinian women were raped by Israeli interrogators to force them to confess to charges leveled against them and collaborate with the Israeli intelligence. Quote, Israeli investigators and intelligence officers keep videotapes of raping to blackmail the female detainees. So according to, I guess, this website, this doesn't seem like super credible, at least, or it might be credible.
Do you have an issue with CARE or Islam.net or the...
Well,
I love how he is just ready to dismiss it offhand. Like, he doesn't want to look if there's any more articles, if there's any other information backing it up. He's just immediately ready to dismiss it, like, right away. I think that's interesting. And this is a big part of the thing with Ethan. It's that his fans call him out for, like, being a genocide supporter, genocide denier, is this type of stuff. And it might be a subtle thing that he doesn't realize. At least he probably doesn't realize how much he's doing it. But it's just this very clear double standard. There's very clear bias where he'll take a headline from an Israeli source or an IDF source, and he'll run with the headline, whatever the claim is, whatever and a lot of times the stuff he's presenting doesn't even say what he thinks it says. So he's not even running with the headline. He's running with the idea behind the headline, I guess you could say. I also would just say it's lazy journalism. Not that he's a journalist, but he's trying to do journalism in this case. It's just really, really lazy, and it's just a complete double standard because on one hand, he accepts it with no sort of backup, with just an idea of a headline, and on the other hand, with these rapes, there's video evidence of people getting of a soldier getting sodomized, multiple. There's video evidence of gang rape going on in the IDF prison. Video evidence. And then since there was video evidence, they actually arrested an IDF or multiple IDF soldiers because of it. And then there was riots from the Israelis to get them out of jail for committing horrible, disgusting, torturous rape with a foreign object. So that story is completely downplayed in the media. You don't hardly hear about it at all. I don't know if Ethan even knows about that, but you can't dismiss it at all. There's video evidence. And right here, he's ready to just dismiss this without even looking into it to even the slightest degree. What is this website? What is this? It's like, well, why don't we look for some other sources and see how credible it is?
What is this?
The lack of.
Listen, that's a huge claim. 15 Palestinian women were raped.
Mm-hmm.
I was sexually abused and photographed, she said. But like, what? I don't know what this is. What is this?
What do you mean?
Is this a source?
You're asking if it's credible.
Yeah.
Yes, CARE is credible. I think, at least.
What is
CARE is? CARE is
There's no
the
source. There's like nothing here. Like shit. I mean, that's a pretty extraordinary claim. I mean, fuck. Like, it's serious to say that the Israeli apparatus is using rape systemically to oppress the Palestinians.
On March 13th, the United Nations.
It is very serious. And you're a guy that constantly claims you know how bad Israeli state is. You know how bad IDF is. You say you're against their actions. You say that you want a new government, new leadership. So in this case, you're saying this is a big claim. You're acting like it's unbelievable, and you're choosing not to look further into it. This is what we're talking about when we call you a genocide supporter. You're not even willing to say, yeah, this fits what I know about the government and about the IDF. Let's look into it further to confirm it and see if it's true or not. He's ready to dismiss it offhand. It does not fit with his other narrative that he knows the Israeli government and the IDF is bad. He says he knows that. But yet, when he's presented with a specific piece of information about him, about what the government's doing, he dismisses it offhand. You see how it doesn't fit the two narratives? I'm not saying that he has to instantly believe it. I'm just saying he won't even give it the time of day. He won't even accept that it's possible. He just says, "Oh, that's a big claim. I mean, that's a big claim. That's a big." Okay, well, let's look into it. You don't seem curious to look into it further. You just seem like you're ready to dismiss it right away. Interesting. And I saw Hassan say later on that AB works for so I don't know if he was AB's dad works for CARE. So I wish I would have heard AB speak up about that at some point. Because if he just stayed silent on that, I don't think he was involved in that video of them talking, but I would like to hear AB speak up if his dad really works for that organization.
Nations released a report called More Than a Human Can Bear, which concluded that it's actually Israel who is guilty of this crime, the use of systematic sexual violence, along with various other gender-related crimes like the deliberate targeting of reproductive healthcare facilities and violence against women and girls, all of which amount to crimes against humanity and acts of genocide. This report is absolutely damning. Everything that the US government, the State of Israel, the New York Times have ever accused Hamas of doing, Israel is guilty of with actual proof. Despite this, the Western media has been silent. In what little coverage the report is receiving, the findings are being downplayed in a repulsive manner. The New York Times, for example, let's just read how they covered it. The Israel is guilty of genocidal mass rape report. The headline reads, UN accuses Israel of targeting reproductive health facilities in Gaza. A report by a UN committee found that Israel has committed genocidal acts intended to prevent births. Israel quickly rejected the findings as biased. Thanks for the heads up on that. Okay, so no mention.
Did it put genocidal in quotes? I gotta see that again. That's crazy if they did.
The report is receiving, the findings are being downplayed in a repulsive manner. The New York Times, for example, let's just read how they covered it. The Israel is guilty of genocidal mass rape report. The headline reads, UN accuses it.
Yeah, quotes, genocidal acts. Okay, you see the work they're doing. This is, again, this is sort of what we talk about in the media being supporters of genocide and genocide deniers. It's little things, the way they report on things like this, the way they put genocidal acts in quotes. I mean, of course, there's plausible deniability everywhere, right? Oh, we're literally just quoting what they called it, but that's selective quotations. And then Israel quickly rejected the findings as biased. What, you don't think the stuff that Israel puts out is biased?
Israel of targeting reproductive health facilities in Gaza. A report by a UN committee found that Israel has committed genocidal acts intended to prevent births. Israel quickly rejected the findings as biased. Thanks for the heads up on that. Okay, so no mention in the headline or the subheading of the systematic mass rape and sexual violence campaign by Israeli forces. It just groups those in with the genocidal acts there. And then an immediate citation of Israel's defense. Incredible. Let's read on. A United Nations commission on Thursday accused Israel of targeting hospitals and other health facilities in Gaza that provide reproductive services, including an IVF clinic where thousands of embryos were destroyed in what it called an effort to prevent Palestinian births. The report by the
Yeah, but all those test tubes were labeled Hamas baby on them. Hamas baby 1, Hamas baby 2. They were targeting terrorists. Clearly. They were targeting Hamas future leaders. Obviously. Come on, guys. This isn't genocide. This isn't trying to systematically wipe out as many people as possible even before they're born.
The UN Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory called that and other actions that cause harm to women and girls, quote, genocidal acts, and accused Israel of punishing Palestinians collectively for the Hamas-led October 7th, 2023 attack that killed 1,200 people. So that's how the New York Times reports mass rape campaigns from Israel. Other actions. Other actions. Which other actions? Mass rape? Weaponized sexual violence? Credible evidence to allegations this time? No. You'll have to wait a bit to hear about those. First, the IDF is speaking. Israeli officials have long accused the Rights Council of singling Israel out, arguing that UN officials and committees condemn the country with far greater frequency than it does dictatorships like North Korea. In February, Gideon Sa'ar, the Israeli foreign minister, said Israel would stop participating in the council, accusing it of demonizing Israel. The United Nations is Hamas. The United Nations is anti-Semitic. That's what Israel told us, and we're going to tell you what they told us uncritically because the New York Times. The first time the word rape is used in this article isn't until 15 paragraphs in, and then when it's used, it's immediately followed with reporting that the accused were not ultimately indicted for any sexual offense, and that Israel says it doesn't do that actually, and that they follow the rules. I could scream. These people are fucking disgusting.
She was taken to sedate the man, and she was nude searched over and over again and filmed. And then she was raped twice by Israeli male soldiers, 2 of them at a time, while videotaping her. We have also one testimony of a woman who was also taken. She says she was also raped by an inspection device by a female soldier more than once. They inserted the inspection device in her rectum. We have also one testimony of a woman saying that she was strip searched and they would beat her on her behind and they would humiliate her in front of each other. Most of the women also who were taken from Gaza, West Bank and Jerusalem said they were beaten on their genitals, which has made it to conclude that there must have been a directive that's been given to the Israeli army to treat women in such manner, because in Jerusalem you're treated by completely different law enforcement than in Gaza or in the West Bank. But all these women said they were beaten on their genitals.
And I could just add on about the women who were forcibly disappeared in Gaza. Like I said before, it was usually as they were fleeing south through the safety corridor, they were abducted at the checkpoint. Many were taken to the Zakim detention center and the Negev detention center, and all together in one large hall, forced to strip completely naked and just sit in this hall, the women amongst each other and the men amongst each other. And it's also been reported and known that Israeli civilians are invited to come to this detention center and mock the Palestinian prisoners while they're naked, photograph them, and watch them as if it's a zoo. So that's something that we've seen.
Also, when it comes to checkpoints, like I said, it's where the sexual violence happens and it goes unreported. So we have a testimony of a teenage girl who was made to undress a man because he refused to undress. They made her undress him, even though she's not related to him. She doesn't know who that man is. And while being searched and touched and molested on their breast and on their genitals as well.
The media has largely downplayed this report and its findings, but it does conclude that Israel...
It's so horrifying, this beating them on their genitals and the humiliation, the stuff they make them do that they know is like really, really against their religion. Really, really, really horrible stuff. And it just goes completely unnoticed, and it's not called terrorism. It's not, and this is stuff. These are the types of things that you can get corroborating. You can prove that they happen just by getting corroborating details from a wide range of people that it happened to and of witnesses, because if all their stories match and they don't have details that go unmatched and you're getting these same stories from multiple people at the same event and there's no mismatch of information, it's a way to tell that it really happened. I'm not saying that's all the only evidence. They have video evidence. They have soldiers that came forward on the IDF that admitted to doing these things. There is a ton of evidence. Unlike the other side, where it's basically apparent that everything the IDF accuses Hamas of doing, it ends up being true that they're the ones doing it. It's just the case. I'm not saying Hamas doesn't do stuff, but it's just not on the mass level. There's no evidence that it's on the mass level that we're finding evidence for in the case of the IDF and what they're doing.
Was guilty of the most prominent accusation made against Hamas on October 7th, which is that it weaponized sexual violence systematically. Israeli security forces do this in a coordinated, intentional manner with the goal of subjugating, humiliating, and collectively punishing.
It might seem like a weird analogy, but it reminds me of like an abusive relationship, or like the relationship of like a narcissistic cheater. Usually in those relationships, if you've ever been lucky enough to be in one, a lot of times the person cheating is the person accusing and being super paranoid about the other person being a cheater. And they constantly are accusing them, constantly want to check their phones. And it's because they have a guilty conscience and they're projecting. You see a very similar thing going on with the IDF. They are projecting what they do onto the Palestinian people. It's just crazy, the cognitive dissonance that has to take place for that to happen. And it looks completely insane from any outsider that's looking at it from a, just this clear mind, unbiased, not looking at believing propaganda, just looking at what's happening. It's crazy. Like it it's the Nazis all over again, and it's the people that were attacked by Nazis turned into Nazis. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And again, it comes down to propaganda, and it comes down to the propaganda that's necessary to maintain this ethno-state in the way that they've maintained it. You can't do it in this colonial state method, but since they did do that, they have to have a reason to justify throwing these people out. It's very simple. It's like we got to get rid of these people one way or another. We either got to kill as many as we can or throw as many as we can out, or some combination of both. And in order for that to work, while we're moving all these colonizers in, these settlers in, we need all of those settlers to believe the same thing, that these people are lower than them. They are inhuman. So they've known from the beginning that that's what they need the settlers to think. And so that's the propaganda that's been pushed for decades. It's not something that's inherent to Jews. It's not some racist thing. There's plenty of Jews all over the world that are against what Palestine is doing. There are some are against what Israel is doing. And there are some Israelis in Israel that are against it as well. It's just very, very, very few. But people can change their mind. The mood can shift. It's going to take time, but it can happen. I mean, we saw what happened with Germany, and it's going to have to happen. We saw what happened with South Africa, and it's going to have to happen again. Eventually, people will realize that they are on the wrong side of the history, and they'll probably either lie about it, say that they never believed that, or whatever. But we need to get to that point where more Israelis understand that apartheid and genocide is wrong, no matter what you think of these people. And you also need to start realizing that they are people and they are equal to you. They deserve all the same rights that you deserve, and this is their land. And if you guys need to stop stealing what you're stealing, and you need to share equally with what's already settled. That's the bottom line. There's complexities to it, but it's not that complex. The complex part is really the U.S. Once the U.S. and the Western world stops just writing blank checks to Israel every year and supplying them with arms and money, that whole dynamic changes completely overnight. And then Israel's forced to sort of, they can't take on all the Muslim countries in the area, so they have to start looking at a peaceful way to deal with them. That's just the bottom line.
The Palestinian population. Will the people in this smear campaign acknowledge the existence of this report? Will they acknowledge that their unverified accusations against Hamas are verified actually by this report against Israel? I personally doubt it, but who knows?
It's serious to say that the Israeli apparatus is using rape systemically to oppress the Palestinians.
The other piece of Zionist propaganda cited by Ethan in his video was his downplaying of the Nakba. He has participated in overt Nakba denial before.
1948, the War of Independence is called in Israel. Others know it as the Arab-Israeli War.
So I just want to note here that Ethan gave this supposed war two names there, but he missed one, the Nakba. And the Nakba is a very relevant and very apt name, because the fact of the matter is that when this supposed war happened, the Palestinians had no real organization, no real funding, no really significant armed groups or leadership to protect them to fight back against the Zionist colonists, while the Zionist colonists had for a very long time organized terrorist groups, militias, etc. among them, which were extremely well funded by international organizations that they had formed, which were dedicated to funding and fomenting the Zionist colonization of Palestine. Hence, what Ethan Klein calls a war here actually started out as mass killings and expulsions by an organized military against the people who did not have one. The Nakba...
Yeah, exactly. This is another big one. Why can't he call it the Nakba? Why is he forced to use this language of calling it a war when it's never been a war. It's always been an ethnic cleansing. It's always been the beginnings or some process of a genocide. It was not a war. The only side that had a military was the Zionists. And it's funny that like Destiny's side like uses that as a sort of, they use that as a win, as they use that as a point in favor of Israel, that well, Israel was an organized, like they were like a more legitimate state than Palestine was. They weren't organized. They weren't organized into a state. They weren't organized into a military. They lived in the area. That's the whole point. They were the indigenous people living in the area. It was their land. Yeah, they didn't have a military, and they didn't have like an official organized state in the same way that others. But what does that matter? It was still their land. They were still the people living there. And the colonizers came in. They were funded by outside groups and outside money to form a militia, and they expelled the people out. It is not that's not a point in favor of Israel to say, well, they had the army and they had the more official state going on, so that gives them, so it was a war and they just kicked ass, man. They just kicked serious ass. That's how Destiny tries to frame it. And that's basically the framing that Ethan is taking here. He's just not saying that last part out loud, which is, well, the Israelis won that war because they successfully kicked a lot of people out. But it wasn't a war. It was just them kicking people out and killing people. That's all it was. It was always an ethnic cleansing. It was always a genocide. It's ridiculous. This is the reframing. This is the lies through omission. This is the reason why we call you a genocide supporter, Ethan. It's very clear.
Contrary to the narrative of Ethan and Hila here, began before the intervention of the nearby Middle Eastern Arab states. It was a reaction to it, in fact. By the time of the Israeli Declaration of Independence, more than half of the people who were expelled in the Nakba had already been expelled.
After the partition plan to split the Palestine into a part Arab, part Jewish, as many of you probably know, every Arab country around Israel waged a war of annihilation.
Okay, so Ethan left the Nakba out of his narrative here entirely. That is absolutely inexcusable. It's like leaving the Holocaust out of World War II. It simply cannot be forgiven. It is abhorrent, honestly. It's the only way that his narrative...
Yeah, so it's important that there was like some around the same time after. It's important to know the order of events, and there's a reason why he left out the Nakba. And even though it wasn't this mass exile like the way he's trying to make it out to be, there was more of a push in the Muslim countries to start pushing Jewish people out. Some of that was pushed by Jewish terrorists going and doing terrorist attacks and blaming it on Muslims, and that was confirmed in multiple cases. This isn't just some made-up Hamas narrative. It was absolutely confirmed, even in Western media, to have happened. So that was one thing that was a catalyst, because they wanted to bring the Jewish people to Israel, right? They're trying to colonize at this point. So, and then they committed the Nakba. So then you have a bunch of Israeli forces slaughtering and pushing Muslim people out of their neighborhoods, out of their homes, out of their farms. And then that also catalyzed this push for Muslims countries to get Jewish people out of their country. So it's important to know the order that things happened, because there was a reason. There was Jewish people were living in peace in a lot of these countries, and there was a reason why they started getting pushed out, and it was all catalysts from what happened after this Nakba. Now, of course, World War II happened as well, and that was another catalyst. But that didn't happen. That was later in night or no. This all happened. I'm sorry. What year was the Nakba? Let me look that up again. I want to get my dates right. We're all learning. What year was the Nakba? Not knockoff. See, the even Google is trying to deny the Nakba. Okay, 1947. So it was right after. That's right. Okay, so it was right after World War II. So 700,000 Palestinian Arabs were expelled or fled from their homes by Zionist paramilitaries. So it's undeniable. But yeah, all these things were catalysts in the Jewish migration to Israel. But there was definitely a push from Israel to get the Jewish people there. And then you had these other catalysts as well. It's important not to leave out like one of the biggest events that happened.
Can really hold up here as well.
But he does it again.
Where almost 1 million Muslims were pushed out of Israel. Like, he's leaving that huge thing out.
In the content nuke in a different way. He downplays the Nakba in the content nuke by equating it to Jewish expulsion from Muslim countries.
In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians during the Nakba. 1 million Jews.
This is done with misinformation, so he lies by omission regarding the nature of Jewish immigration to Israel. But even if he hadn't, this is on its face a piece of Zionist propaganda. Because being a refugee does not enshrine upon you some right to steal other people's land and make them refugees. That's what the settlement of Israel was, and any equivocation between that and other factors is a direct rhetorical justification for the crime.
The very premise behind it is obviously flawed, and presenting the partition plan as if it was not clearly a grave injustice is a rhetorical trick to then sort of implant this idea that what Israel did was legitimate. They were just abiding by the plan, apparently, even though they broke every single thing that was stipulated in it, and that it is the fault of the Palestinians.
Yeah, they didn't even abide by the UN partition plan. They never have. And they act like everything that happened to the Jews justifies them doing it to another group. That is the constant, like, they honestly seem to believe this in their minds. And I don't know if it's because, well, sure, I guess I don't know how prevalent it is, but I know that there is a big piece of propaganda that I've heard, I believe, spread by Netanyahu that Hitler was, I'm trying to think of the Muslim leader, but basically he's trying to say that Hitler got his idea from one of the Muslim leaders of the time to go after the Jews. And that's absolutely a lie. You could tell by Hitler's own writings that he just absolutely despised the people. They were his genuine beliefs. But one has to wonder if this is part of the reason that they're able to justify in their minds that they're owed a genocide at this point, and that it's okay for them to genocide Muslims because they're the ones that gave Hitler the idea to do it to them. I've heard Netanyahu say it, so I don't know how prevalent that is in the imagination of Zionists, but something in their head makes them think that they have the right to a genocide, like they have a free genocide card. No, when someone commits genocide on your people, it's not like a get out of genocide free card. That's not what that is. That's not how that works.
Palestinians for rejecting obviously untenable things like this, rather than just giving up more than half of their country to new arrivals for their own exclusive use. And it's especially ironic that Zionists love to cite the partition plan as somehow legitimizing when they reject, like, literally every other UN prescription or decision, binding or not, ever made on the subject of Israel-Palestine aside from it.
The last main point on Ethan.
Yeah, they've basically said the UN is Hamas, controlled by Hamas. They've said that on several occasions. But they're happy to quote the UN if they report or come out with any sort of report that seems favorable to Israel. They'll be happy to push that. But as soon as it says something that goes against their narrative, oh, that's Hamas. Say, come on, guys.
Ethan's support of the genocide in Gaza is his effort to delegitimize resistance to that genocide. He spends a good deal of time in his video going after Hezbollah and Ansar Allah, literally calling them the bad guys.
All right, so these guys are clearly the bad guys.
I feel like I already touched on this a bit in this video and the last one, but what struck me about this section was just the brazen lies about these groups, spreading the ridiculous claim that Hezbollah is responsible for the entirety of the death toll of the Syrian civil war, while also changing all of those deaths, which included combatants, to civilians, and accusing them of genocide.
They participated in the slaughter of over 500,000 Syrian civilians, and they killed hundreds of thousands of civilians in what can only be described as a genocide.
No one does this. I don't know where this came from, but it's just legitimately a bizarre claim to make. Or his false claims about the Houthis, that the hostages taken from the Galaxy leader had not been seen or heard from since the genocide began.
I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that's kidnapped in this video has been missing for over a year now, with zero updates on their health, whereabouts, or anything. That lines up with leftist values.
That's not true. They were confirmed to be in good health by visits from humanitarian organizations, or just lying about the nature of their attacks, as if the Houthis are attacking these ships for any reason other than what they're doing it for, which is to stop Israel's genocide.
The Houthis have been extremely explicit and repeat on an almost daily basis. Their attacks on ships in the Red Sea will stop as soon as the Gaza war ends, and
this has been a huge talking point from Destiny. I heard him again today, talking about how the Houthis are just randomly attacking ships. They're not doing any good. They're not helping anyone. They're just terrorists attacking random ships. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're such a liar. You are such a liar. You're such a Weasley little liar, Destiny. Mr. Steve Brunel.
Humanitarian and other supplies are allowed into Gaza, and therefore the Palestinians will no longer be under the threat and the horrors that you've earlier described and that most of us have seen on our screens for many, many weeks. The important thing is that although the US and the UK claim that they're only defending free movement in the Red Sea and refuse to accept any connection between this and the war in Gaza, for the Houthis, it's absolutely straightforward and explicit that, number one, they're only targeting ships that have any connection with Israel, whether they're going to Israel, coming from Israel, delivering stuff, owned by Israelis or whatever, any connection, whatever. And that other ships are not targeted, except, of course, now, since the US and UK strikes have started, they are also targeting US and UK ships.
Also evident in the fact that during the ceasefire, quote-unquote ceasefire, that Israel violated over 1,000 times, the Houthis stopped the attacks, and they only started them up again when Israel started completely starving out the Gaza Strip, fully restricting aid. And in defiance of the starvation blockade,
yeah, they're following the law. They're doing Good Samaritan laws by doing something, at least attacking the financials of Israel. It's better than doing nothing, which is what most of the countries are doing. It's really sad, really sad that they're just being labeled terrorists. They're not even killing people. They're just interrupting trade for Israel. It reminds me of the no correct way to protest, and obviously stopping merchant ships is a little bit more than protesting what was it, the protest during the NFL, they were acting like kneeling during the the national anthem was some big deal, some horrible, horrible thing to do. It's the same thing here. It's like, okay, they're not allowed to break out of their open air prison and fight back and kill civilians. I mean, that's understandable. But now you have a group that's just taking down merchant ships temporarily to interrupt trade to affect Israel financially and hurt them that way. And there's no direct killing going on to the Israelis in that case, and that's not acceptable either. That's still just being labeled terrorism. But yet, there's still these same people are not labeling Israel terrorists as they kill hundreds of civilians daily. It just doesn't make sense, and it's this continued double standard that these people have that proves that they're supporters of genocide. It's not a matter of them just coming out and saying, I support genocide, like he said. It's the things that you don't say. It's the things that you emphasize and the things that you won't even admit exist. All of those things, you use critical thinking and deduction of thought to figure out whose side you're on. It's not that difficult.
The US and the Saudis started bombing in Yemen and killing children. So if you want to stop Israel from killing children, the US will kill your children. That's basically the conclusion of that sequence of events. It bears repeating here, Hezbollah...
I just thought of something too. I'm very curious if Ethan plans to go live at all while he's in Israel. That'll be very interesting to say. He says that he criticizes Israel. He criticizes Netanyahu. He criticizes the IDF. I'll be very curious to see if he feels safe and willing to do that. He says it's a free, open society. I'm assuming it has freedom of speech. Let's see how much he's willing to criticize his government at a time like right now. I wonder if he's going to have any like government, propaganda handlers while he's there. Very curious to know that as well. Just some things that popped into my head, but that's a big one. If he does plan to go live, I don't know if he's going to go live or if he's just going to make a video and then edit it. And that's more than likely what he'll do is make a video, edit it while he's there or when he gets back and then release it. But hopefully he'll go live and people can hold his feet to the fire. But yeah, like it'll be easier for him to criticize if he's just doing a video when he gets back and he's able to edit it and safely put it online once he gets back. But what I would like to see is him go live and criticize his government while he's out there. Someone should ask him to do that. Someone should make sure that he does that to prove what a free country it is, to prove that you're able to criticize your country there. I mean, I know people do. The people are against it that are there. But I'm wondering if that, if there's any danger of being arrested or something as being somebody as big as Ethan saying something while he's there. I don't know. It's just something interesting. I think he should do it to prove that it's safe. But I'm just curious if he even wants to do something like that while he's there. Anyways.
Hezbollah and Ansar Allah are the only groups in the world that have provided aid to the Palestinian resistance against Israel's genocide. That's a fact. Citing their status as US-designated terrorist groups or historical examples of their violations of international law does not change that fact. If we acknowledge the fact that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, which Ethan, or at least his fans, seem to believe he does, then it must also be recognized that the international community is legally obligated under the Genocide Convention to employ all means necessary to prevent said genocide.
This is important because... Let me see if I can hide this. I think this is important. The ICJ has also concluded that the obligation to prevent genocide contained in Article 1 of the Genocide Convention has an extraterritorial scope. As such, states that have the capacity to influence others have a duty to employ all means reasonably available to them to prevent genocide, including in relation to acts committed outside their own borders. What does that mean? That means that every state that is not helping to end this genocide by any means that they have available to them, they are complicit. They are helping commit this genocide. The state's obligations under the Genocide Convention. Obligation not to commit genocide. Article 1. Obligation to prevent genocide. Also Article 1, which has extraterritorial scope. Obligation to punish genocide. Article 1. So there's obligation to do something about it to the offenders. Obligation to enact the necessary legislation to give effect to the provisions of the convention. So to basically put it into law to stop genocide. So it's a big deal that no one other than these couple of groups are actually doing anything to stop the genocide. It's international law, and the United States has signed the Genocide Convention, so they are breaking a convention that they signed. I'm pretty sure.
When it comes to Israel's genocide in Gaza, these terrorists here are the only ones following the law, the only ones operating with any sort of moral compass.
All states are obliged to do everything in their power to stop this genocide from continuing in Palestine. Who has actually done that? South Africa, when they brought Israel to trial in the International Court of Justice for genocide. I've said arguably Hezbollah, not a state, but it is a significant actor in that state because it has engaged Israeli forces militarily, initially in territory illegally occupied by Israeli forces, the Shebaa farms in South Lebanon, to draw Israeli assets away from the genocide. And the third one that you mentioned very significantly, Yemen, under Houthi control. The Houthis, Ansar Allah, they announced in response to Israel's genocide in Palestine.
Man, I'm just so sick of looking at this rubble, like, with all these people standing around rubble, knowing that their friends and family are buried under it, along with everything else, their lives, their possessions. I just feel that Americans are so desensitized to this, and I don't know, I guess it's like a relapse or something, because I think I've been so desensitized by it that I've come back full circle, and it makes me sick every time I see it. Like, it just makes me feel so depressed and helpless, that there isn't like more that can be done, like something that can be done to stop our government from funding this, from helping, from being complicit in a genocide. We're all complicit in this genocide to some extent, and it's just sickening. I'm just so tired of seeing it. Like, stop destroying these people's homes. Stop killing them. Stop destroying their land. It's not okay.
That it would block shipping into the Red Sea that was headed to resupply the Israeli regime as long as it continues the siege and the genocide in Gaza. And it's been used.
And I'm sorry, but yeah, the Houthis don't deserve to die for this either. They're doing God's work out there. They are the only ones stepping up, and they're doing it in a non-violent way without killing people. Like, they're doing it the right way. And they're losing lives, and they're losing civilian lives. They're losing innocent lives from it. You know, Trump is a liar. He said that he was going to be not escalating war. He said he was going to be ending wars, and he's not. That's just not happening in any of the wars. It's ridiculous.
Using this choke point at the head of the Red Sea called Bab el-Mandeb.
In fact, the ceasefire stopped under Trump. You know, he could have definitely done more or done something to stop the ceasefire from ending. I know for a fact that he greenlit that ceasefire to end. He is the one. Him and Netanyahu are good buddies, and I guarantee you he knew the ceasefire was going to end before anyone else, other than Netanyahu himself. But I guarantee you Trump knew that this was going to escalate, and he probably encouraged it. From his own words that he puts out in public, he's encouraging it. So I can only imagine what he's saying to Netanyahu behind closed doors or over the phone or whatever.
Which means the Gate of Tears, in this narrow strait between Yemen and Djibouti at the opening of the Red Sea. And they started this targeted partial blockade in November of 2023 when the genocide started by boarding an Israeli ship. And then they sustained the blockade until the announcement of the most recent so-called ceasefire. At that moment, the Houthis lifted the blockade while the ceasefire was going on, demonstrating that they were doing this as a humanitarian intervention in order to meet what the International Court of Justice has said is the responsibility of all states, and what the General Assembly in its implementing resolution has confirmed is the responsibility of all states, to do everything in their power to stop the genocide and the siege that was being imposed on Gaza. Some ships avoided the blockade by sailing around Africa, but most of them couldn't. So the major shipping companies stopped sailing to the Red Sea, and the port of Eilat in Israel went bankrupt, which means that this blockade was working. It was denying the Israeli regime many of the goods that it needed to continue the siege and to continue the genocide in Palestine.
The United States, aka the terrorist designator.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's incredible. So not only were they doing what they were doing was legal and obligatory action, it was not terrorism in any shape or form. It's totally legal action. But not only that, it was actually working. It actually bankrupted the port in Israel. So yeah, I didn't even know that part of how successful it had been. No wonder they're pissed, and no wonder they're having Trump bomb them to kingdom come. That's very interesting. That makes a lot more sense.
Meanwhile, are the ones doing the terrorism. They are aiding and abetting a genocide with billions of dollars in arms shipments to Israel. The liberal framework of thought is only able to conceptualize.
Imagine living in an area like, it's one thing the amount of people that are getting killed, but imagine living through that. Like every time you hear something in the sky, you must have PTSD. Is just, I imagine those people were just like flinching all the time from loud noises, and just living in an area where you're hearing bombs going off every day is a extremely traumatic experience to live through. It's incredibly difficult.
Actors in conflict as being good and bad. Israel's far-right government is bad, Ethan says, but so are terrorists. Genocide is bad. I don't agree with genocide, of course, but hijacking ships is bad too. It's against the law, which is bad. Everybody should just stop doing bad stuff. Okay, well, Israel's not stopping. They're not stopping the genocide. The US is not stopping its arms shipments so that Israel can continue that genocide. That is the material reality. If you actually want that genocide to stop, you need to do something material to try to stop it. And so far in the world, the only people doing that outside of Gaza militarily are Hezbollah and Ansar Allah. If you spend all your time attacking these groups while sitting on the sidelines, idealistically opining on what forms of resistance are acceptable to you, then you're supporting the genocide. Full stop. There's something to be said here about the basic attack on free speech evident in this campaign. They want to deplatform Hassan for interviewing a Yemeni teen.
Yep, it's the same as the damn people. Like I do think it's a good analogy, because it's the same as the people that were going after Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the national anthem, saying that that's an unacceptable way to protest. That's an unacceptable way to fight back against police brutality, even though it's completely peaceful. It doesn't hurt anyone. It's disrespecting the veterans. There's so many ties. It's actually very similar to genocide denial and Zionism, because Ethan is like, there's no way to. He'll be the first one to be like, yeah, police brutality is bad and all, or, in this case, Zionism and the Israeli state, they're bad and all, but as far as the proper way to fight against them is, well, I don't have a proper way for anyone to fight back against them. It's so similar to the protest thing. Like, he's against any sort of fight back against the Israeli state in any form. Even though he has said settlers in the West Bank are valid military targets. I hope he remembers that when he goes out there. I don't know. He just says so much contradictory stuff, but I think that's a good analogy to the, like, there's no proper way to protest, and there's also no proper way for them to fight back.
Teenager on the grounds that they believe this teenager is a member of Ansar Allah or the Houthis, a US designated terrorist group, and that Hassan didn't just interview him, but he promoted him. Glazing is the legal term they use, I believe.
It started with Hassan platforming Houthi terrorists. This kid is a rampant anti-Semite and a violent Houthi terrorist.
But he literally had a terrorist on a stream. This wasn't really an interview, it was like a glorified promotion reel.
Glorifying a terrorist live on stream. This man does not critically apply any form of journalism.
Hassan did not ask him one critical.
I cannot stand that Willie Mack guy. He's just so fucking fake. God, that guy just, his voice and his whole vibe is just so fake and plastic, like used car salesman vibes.
Question. In fact, the opposite. It was a complete puff piece where he sucked him off, elevated him, was uncritical.
None of this is true. Ethan provided no credible evidence to the claim that Rashid al-Haddad, or Tim Houthi Chalamet, the nickname of the Yemeni teenager, is a member of Ansar Allah. And in their interview, Hassan asked multiple questions that were critical of Rashid.
I don't know if he can answer this or not, but as far as the Ansar Allah militancy goes, like as far as the standing military goes, like I don't know if he is allowed to speak on this. I don't know if he's like actually a part of the groups at all, or just like simply a TikToker. You know what I mean? I don't know how to ask that in the best way possible, though.
طيب يعني بقول لك يعني أنا يمني يعني كيمني يعني أنا واقف إلى جانب فلسطين.
His answer is a Yemeni who stands with Palestine.
In America, some of the like leading groups that are pro-Palestine are led by Jewish people who are anti-Israel. How does he feel about that?
والله يعني صراحة أي واحد يدعم فلسطين إحنا معه.
He's saying anyone that supports Palestine, we're with.
Hell yeah. But even if that hadn't happened, and even if he were a member of the Houthis, calling for deplatforming on those grounds is a basic violation of free speech.
It was very frustrating to see that, because like there is journalistic value to interviewing every single person. People have interviewed Osama bin Laden. I was trying to make him comfortable in that conversation because I didn't know if he was a Houthi or not. I thought he might be, right? So I wanted to make him as comfortable as possible. And then, yes, the conversation trajectory probably would have changed a little bit if he had said he was a Houthi. He said he was not. And I was inclined to believe him. There's no reason for me not to. But even in that process, they still asked him about like his thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. The whole tone of the conversation would have gone to a different place if the dude started saying he hates Jewish people, or if he started saying anything anti-Semitic. Like, Ethan's just a liar. And that guy said he loves anyone that's pro-Palestinian. His heart goes out to anyone that's pro-Palestinian. He said he's not a Houthi. He said he's a Yemeni. So, you kind of have to take someone at their word when you're interviewing them, and don't know anything about them in real life, and don't have any way to truly verify whether he is or not. You have to meet him where he's at and take his word for it. But I know for a fact if he would have said something anti-Semitic, that Hassan wouldn't have gone along with that, and he probably would have either ended the interview or asked him some questions like, why do you hate these people, or what is your reasoning, and at least get more of the perspective, but not in a like glazing way. But the fact is, the kid seemed like a really nice kid. He just happens to be born in a place where there's people living that have been genocided themselves, and that the U.S. Has designated a terror group. But it doesn't mean every person from the region is a terrorist. It's just Islamophobia. It's just bigotry. There was no reason to say anything mean to that kid. There just wasn't. There was no reason to treat him like shit. There was no reason to treat him like a terrorist. It's just not, and he was interviewed by the AP, I believe, and it wasn't a hostile interview either. So, I mean, what are we calling the AP terrorists as well? Of course not. Of course they're not doing that, because that's not part of the Hassan hate club plan.
On Jewish people, anti-Semitism, and the like.
They wanted to deplatform Hassan for watching an Ansar Allah music video on his stream. They claim that this is terrorist promotion, watching unfettered terrorist propaganda, as they claimed. But the question here is, what level of denunciation and condemnation would be required during Hassan's viewing of that video in order for it to clear the bar of a valid viewing of a piece of political media? The mere existence on the screen of a video from the Houthis is enough to trigger that post-9/11 war on terror response in the American viewer, to the point that they're willing to just call for his banning for making such violent and evil threats like Yemeni people are a musical people, or these songs function as an act of resistance against the US-backed Saudi genocide.
Instead of terrorist propaganda, let's call it musicals.
They do musicals.
Instead of violent jihadists, let's call them musically talented people.
They're very musical people.
It is precisely this line of argument that the US government and the Trump administration have taken.
Such a horrible person for calling the Yemeni people a musical people. And again, you have Ethan just grouping all the Yemenis as terrorists. All I see is bigotry and Islamophobia from Ethan. I'm not seeing a terrorist or terrorist supporter from Hassan. That's just not the point that he's proving.
When it comes to the illegal kidnapping and detention of Palestinian
Is this Hassan
activist
back
Mahmoud
here?
Khalil, he is not charged with a crime. He is being silenced for his speech on the grounds that it constitutes terrorist promotion. As this sort of terrorism is a threat to U.S. national security, according to the U.S., this is grounds for detention. The terrorism in question here is, of course, advocating against a genocide. Whether it's the U.S.-backed genocide of Palestinians in Gaza or the U.S.-backed genocide of the people of Yemen through its crippling blockade that has resulted in the starvation of hundreds of thousands of people, or its indiscriminate bombing campaign that has killed tens of thousands more. In both of these places, the justification is fighting terrorism. When the US-backed Saudi coalition blows up a school bus full of school children, the justification they use is that they were targeting the Houthis.
It was an attack which drew international condemnation and left the parents of 40 children crying over their graves. Initially, the Saudi-led coalition claimed the attack was a justified military operation. It was targeting Houthi leaders. Now, it says, it made mistakes.
When Israel blows up a hospital, lighting medical tents on fire and burning Palestinians alive, the justification they're using is fighting terrorism. It's all part of this same system, and whether on the ground in Gaza or on the airwaves of media coverage of it, the premise itself of terrorism needs to be challenged. Which is why when you release a video for 3 million people attacking resistance to genocide as terrorism,
terrorist groups, terrorist propaganda, terrorism, terrorist organization,
you're sort of doing that same thing. The last point for today's video I want to bring up is the concept of deflecting criticism. Ethan implies that my decision to criticize him or character assassinate and horrifically lie about him, as he put it, is tied to Hassan being my idol, and my idol being criticized compelled me to defend him, seemingly against logic or reason or something like that. This was an accusation shared by many of the viewers of my video. Hassan Glazer detected, opinion rejected. Now what's interesting is that this response simply reinforces my point about the Hassan bad online media ecosystem. To these people, responding to my arguments on their own merit is unnecessary because they can simply write me off as de facto wrong because I am defending Hassan, who is de facto wrong because Hassan bad. It is not the actual political issue I am defending him on that they're able to challenge, the issue of course being opposing Israel's genocide in Gaza and informing viewers about the resistance to that genocide without screaming, "I condemn terrorism" into the microphone for every second of that coverage. No, it's not that. It is the mere fact that Hassan is on the screen while I make these points that seems to trigger this response. The response of completely ignoring the valid connections between Hassan's arguments and my own. It's cowardly, but expected, and only serves to strengthen my resolve in the notion that these people are not serious in their politics and therefore should not be taken seriously. The other major example of this sort of deflection is in regards to my citation of the YouTuber Bad Empanada. I can't tell you how many comments I received from people that decided to throw out all of the points made in.
Yeah, it's all these people do is they attack based on ad homs. Like, oh, yeah, Ethan talked shit about this guy. Ethan said this guy's a piece of shit. You're gonna cite him. Oh, you're automatically a piece of shit. It's all based on Hassan bad, bad empanada bad, people bad, people I don't like not good, all their information no good. And it's like, you have to address the arguments. You have to address the substance of the criticism. You have to actually deal with the information. You can't just say, and look, I know Bad Empanada's a pretty, like, wild guy online. Oh no, he's a wild and crazy guy. Again, I think he's a leftist provocateur. He says provocative things in a provocative way. It's not my style, but I don't have a problem with it. I see a purpose for it, and I think we need to have some aggressive people on our side. I don't have a problem with him. I don't think he's actually crossed the line anywhere. But again, you have the art and you have the artist. When he does his YouTube videos, they're packed full of actual facts, actual knowledge, and he does his research. That's the bottom line. He puts out good quality content, and it's very simple. It's nothing fancy or anything flashy. It's very much just meat and potatoes. Gets right down to it and focuses on the factual information, and he does a great job. So engage with the information, or just admit that you can't. Going after people just saying he's bad, he's fat, he's ugly, he looks like a terrorist, da 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 da. These are all the things they say. And it's not an argument. Sorry. Same thing they do with Mike from PA. Oh, he's fat, he's ugly. They just dismiss him. I don't know if any of these people have seen Ethan. I mean, if we're gonna base his information on the way he looks, his information is dog shit, man. He looks like a freaking zombie that just crawled out of the ground. So his information must be total bullshit if we're basing it off the way people look. I mean, come on.
In my hour-long video in their entirety, because at the start of it, I cited Bad Empanada's prior responses. None of these comments, and I mean not a single one out of the seemingly thousands of them, took the time to respond to, let alone debunk Bad Empanada's points about Ethan's video. So far, I haven't seen anyone do that, or even try. Regardless of how you feel about Bad Empanada or what you think of his posts online, the facts are the facts. If you can't dispute them, then just say that and move on. Embrace your ignorance and your blind fandom, because at least then you're not being a coward. You're just saying, yeah, I'm dumb. I'm a dumb idiot baby. I don't like Bad Empanada because he's mean to my favorite streamer. Okay, that's fine. That's the truth. There's a claim going around that Hassan being pro-Palestine does not make him immune from criticism.
One of the most cynical methods Hassan deploys to sidestep any criticism is to deflect to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I've seen him do this so many times. He frames it like you are selfish for trying to criticize him, no matter what the reason is, because there's a genocide happening, man. How can you criticize me at a time like this?
In one way, this is true. Like, let's say Hassan walked up to you and stepped on your foot and you said, hey man, don't do that, ow. And he responded by saying, you're going to criticize me while there's an active genocide going on right now? Seriously? That would be an example of an invalid deflection from criticism. However, when the criticism in question is related to Hassan's support of Palestinians and advocacy against their genocide, and the criticism is coming from people who do not support that cause, then yes, it makes him immune. He doesn't have to take that criticism seriously because it's coming in bad faith from people who are not allies to his cause. If criticism is coming from parties who have no stake in or solidarity with the mission of Palestinian liberation, these criticisms are irrelevant. They are beneath consideration. The people who levy these criticisms do not talk about politics until it's time to make a Hassan bad video. This is the case with all of the slop tubers who shared the smear campaign. Ethan here might argue that he does have a stake in the pro-Palestine movement, as he has referred to himself as a stalwart ally to this cause.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
This raises some questions, you know.
He sounded like such a damn cornball when he said that. I've never heard him use that word before. I'm just still curious where he got that word for and decided that it was fitting to his support of Palestine.
to my mind, namely, how? What did he do to be able to bestow upon himself the label of stalwart ally? Calling yourself an ally is already, what are you doing? But in this case, especially, what are you do? What did you do? What did he do? He donated to a fundraiser. Okay. But what if I told you that this donation was a one-time donation of what is likely less than 1% of his yearly income to a fundraiser that Hassan ran, and that this was followed by total silence on Gaza over the course of the genocide until it was time to attack Hassan with smears that originate from genocidal Zionists. And then in order to justify these actions, he would hold that donation of what is likely 1% of his yearly income over people's heads.
I've donated $6,500 to a Palestinian charity after the war started.
Hey, Ethan Klein, thank you for the dono. Ethan Klein gave $6,500. My goat.
And when I say silence, I do mean that. A search through every episode of the H3 podcast, which is Ethan's most significant form of content creation in the span between October 7th of 2023 and the release date of his content nuke, you can count the number of times Gaza is mentioned on one hand. Most of the time, it's not even brought up by Ethan. It's brought up by his producers, and then when they bring it up, barely a breath is spent on the topic. I'm not interested in handing out or revoking allyship badges, but I do think if someone is using that label on themselves while actively working against the cause, this needs to be exposed and understood so that we can stop including them in the conversation. I realize that for those of you who are already aware of how he's doing this, I'm just doing that now by talking about him, and you're welcome to criticize me for that. That's who I'm willing to listen to criticism from, people that actually care about this issue. But I do think there are a good amount of people, in his audience especially, that just can't really see what he's doing. People who might otherwise be allies to the cause are being misdirected into liberal Zionism. And I do think that's worth exploring, at least for a certain amount of time. Now, while all of this vitally important influencer discourse was going on, somewhere else in the world, there were other developments. On March 17th, Israel carpet-bombed sleeping Palestinians in Gaza at 2 a.m. in one of the most bloody massacres since the genocidal onslaught began 17 months ago. Over 400 Palestinians are confirmed to have been killed by this act of Israeli terrorism, and over 1,000 more injured. They killed more children in a single day than in any day in Israel's history. This came after 17 straight days of a complete siege on any humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. They had already been breaking the ceasefire repeatedly over 1,000 times, something which the US media continually whitewashed, but this attack was Israel's formal unilateral destruction of the ceasefire, slaughtering hundreds of starving children in their sleep. This record-breaking child-killing event was celebrated in Israeli Telegram channels with hundreds of thousands of members. In response to a video of a Palestinian girl mourning her mother that was slain by Israel, the Israelis wrote, "Cry, you whore, a whore, 1,000 whores. Cry as long as you can until we get to you too and eliminate you together with your ugly girl." To a video.
I mean, this level of pure evil, this pure demonic evil is like unimaginable. I mean, this is just, I mean, it almost seems beyond like how evil the Nazis were. I mean, it's very, very similar. It's disgusting. I mean, I don't know how you can say that to a little girl, to an innocent little child. Like, it is truly disturbing. These people are disgusting. And Ethan and H3 had their big, fundraiser for themselves right before the ceasefire ended. And I don't think Ethan has mentioned it. It hasn't even popped up. I don't even know if he's knows that the ceasefire ended. But he sure as hell doesn't mention it, doesn't bring it up, doesn't talk about all the dead people, all the dead children. It just, like, how does it not even get a mention from him? But every day he's calling Hassan a terrorist. Every day he's bringing up Hassan and ripping into him about his politics when he's just continuously ignoring what's happening in Gaza. It's just so disgusting.
Video of a child in Gaza collecting his parents' remains, someone replied, "A young piglet vigorously collects hot and fresh litter to break the fast." The very next day after this massacre, Israel blew up a cancer hospital, the Turkish Friendship Hospital, the only hospital in Gaza specializing in treating cancer patients. They just blew the entire building up. It's rubble now. The IDF said that the hospital was a Hamas compound, but it was actually an IDF compound. They raided it at the start of the genocide, kicked everyone out, and have been using it as a military base for the past 16 months. If we're gonna make this about good and bad, generally speaking, the people blowing up cancer hospitals are not the good guys. So if this is what's gone on in the first 3 days of Israel's full breaking of the ceasefire,
And this is the type of shit that people like Destiny will just dismiss offhand. And someone like Ethan, if you present him with this information, he'll just say, "Oh, well, it was probably, they said it was a Hamas compound. Oh, I don't know about the other stuff. I don't know if those claims are true." He just believes what's convenient to the Israeli state propaganda, their narrative, but then claims to be against them, claims to call them out. But for what? If you're taking their side and believing everything they say and not believing everything that comes out against them, how is it that you're against them? Like, I just want to honestly know, like, specifically, what are you upset with the Israeli government for? What are you upset with the IDF for? Are you actually upset with them? You need to specify, well, what they've done, because you seem to just be denying everything they do.
ceasefire, why am I, instead of talking about that, talking about what some idiot Zionist influencer thinks? And there's a few reasons, but first, look, the last time I framed a video about Gaza around a YouTube drama, it got over 700,000 views. That's 700,000 people that came in expecting me to talk shit about a YouTuber and left with a video that was mostly about Gaza. But when I released a video the following week with an explicitly political topic, media coverage of Israel's ceasefire violations, it barely broke 100,000 views. My perspective right now is that over everything else, we need reach. We need people to know about what Israel is doing, people that don't already know, or at least aren't seeing updates on Israel's genocide, which is a lot of people. The media is not covering it. They weren't covering it a lot before, but over the past 17 months, that coverage has dwindled down to almost nothing. And as we've seen, the majority of it is just straight up manufacturing consent. This includes that record-breaking child-killing massacre from Israel. How many of you heard about that, described in those terms, the terms of what actually happened, and not just another new, quote, Israeli Gaza offensive, with some catastrophic record-breaking death toll that doesn't even make it into the headline? The best way, I think, to get more people to know about this stuff is by using the algorithm for what it's meant to be used, which is views. And in this case, what that looks like is farming drama. I could be wrong about this approach, and if you think there's better ways to go about this, then feel free to let me know in the comments. I've been thinking about lately doing something like scaling up and running the channel as a platform, but a non-profit, so that I can just cover more things more consistently and not have to choose between, a US-backed child massacre and Ethan Klein, but until then, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag. Regardless, it doesn't matter what you think of these creators. It's not about them. It's not about anyone being good or bad, or what your YouTube subscription feed says about your morals. It's about a genocide that's happening right now, that's unfolding in front of our eyes, and that most of our countries are actively supporting. If these creators are giving people rhetoric to support the genocide that's happening, then we need to talk about that. That's something we need to discuss, especially if that person is claiming to be an ally to the cause. And if other creators are fighting against it, then that's worth talking about too. If they're providing historical analysis and breaking down propaganda that's being used for the genocide, or giving an honest voice to its resistance, then that content is important and should be shared and supported regardless of how you feel about the individuals involved. Unfortunately, we're sort of stuck in a media ecosystem that cares far more about influencer drama than it does about Palestinian lives. Part of the effort here is an attempt to steer that media ecosystem and the consumers existing inside of it towards being more aware of their plight, towards caring.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been battling with myself, is like constantly covering Ethan. And, I don't feel like it's my goal to be like a drama YouTuber, but I feel that this is important to cover for all the reasons he just mentioned, because of its connection to the larger narrative and the effect that it's having on the larger narrative. I think that it's important to fight against his narrative because it's a lie, for one thing, but he's right. It's also taking advantage of the algorithm to get our ideas out to more people. And if that's what works, I really don't have a problem with it. I don't care what people label me as, because I already know that my content's going to grow and evolve and cover a wide range of things, because I have a wide range of interests. And I am absolutely tired of the Ethan crash out. I really wish that he would wind it down, give it a rest, find some help offline to deal with his mental problems. But until that happens, it is something that is important to cover, and I'm going to continue to cover it. And I'm not going to feel guilty about doing so. But this just kind of confirms. I hadn't even thought about it like specifically from the view count algorithm perspective, but it's true. It's like my only videos right now. I have other videos that got some views, but yeah, these get, for whatever reason, Ethan Klein, because everyone's talking about it, talking about the drama, it gets bigger numbers. But that means our ideas are getting out to more people, and that's not a bad thing at all. So yeah, good point. Good point from Noah. Shout out to Noah.
Caring about it and hopefully doing something to try and stop it. So anyways, yes, I will keep using influencer drama to grab your heads and slam them against the screen to show you what Israel is doing. And if you don't like that, tell your favorite influencers to stop using their massive platforms to back a genocide. Tell them to stop spreading genocidal propaganda, lying about the resistance to it, and silencing and deplatforming advocates against the genocide. Do that, and then I'll leave you all to your slop. It's very simple. Okay, that's all for today's video. Thanks for watching. I've linked some fundraisers below. Support them if you can. Free Palestine. Goodbye.
Yeah, another banger. No, Vosh, we don't need to hear your opinion on it. I can cover that myself. God, I hate the way Vosh covers things, man. He just says a lot of words and not a lot of meaning. Let's go to what Hassan is kind of, I think this is replying to, yeah, I think this is replying to Ethan's latest coverage, latest slop, latest hate. Oh, might wanna turn the volume up.
Defamation is kind of idiotic. I have grounds to sue Destiny and Ethan for defamation. I would never do that in a million years. Okay? Part of the reason why I would never do that in a million years is because what kind of financial damages can I fucking point to? Like, the context nuke flopped just because someone defamed.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you have, you do need to be able to point to financial loss. Now, on the opposite side, maybe that does point to Ethan having more of a case, because he's definitely been tanking, losing viewership and all of that. The problem with that is that started even before October 7th, and then it took a big dive right at October 7th, and that was before the whole breakup with Hassan and all of that. He could maybe, I'm sure he tries to tie it back to that, but you know, Hassan wasn't doing anything to Ethan. He never did. He's still just defending himself against Ethan's attacks. But yeah, if anybody's suffered financially since all of this began, definitely would be Ethan for sure. I don't think it means he has a case. But yeah, it is interesting. I don't think Hassan has had any financial sufferings because of this.
Like that's one of the aspects.
I think the Hassan hatred chunk of money that he's been losing, that's been a part of the equation for a long time. So he's just doing so well that the Hassan hate it's a minimal amount that it affects his financials. I mean, maybe it is, but if it is, it's very little, and there's been a hate campaign going against him for a very long time. So if it was going to do real financial damage, it probably would have done it by now.
Next year is just like what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Since his context nuke didn't fucking work, he's been brigading everything that I've that I've been a part of, literally calling out journalists that have interviewed me even before the video came out, constantly telling people like, how do you engage in talks with a person who is like a rape denialist or whatever. I don't know, just like ridiculous shit over and over again. Stop saying you won't sue them. Why do you lay yourself fucking prostrate in front of fascists? Because I'm not a bitch. That's number one. And number two is I also understand how defamation suits work. Okay? For the most part, Ethan's lawyers, I think, are just farming him for money by saying, yes, King, there's definitely something we can get out of here. Kind of how Ryan Kavanaugh's lawyers have farmed Ryan Kavanaugh, seemingly. Law student here. The Supreme Court set a very high standard for defamation suits against public figures on matters of public concern. You would have to prove that no statements were made with knowledge of their falsity or reckless disregard for the truth. This actual malice standard is a very high threshold to meet. Yes, law student here is correct. The actual malice standard is a very high threshold to meet, and so any lawsuit is definitely meritless. There also needs to be like what are the material damages that you can show?
Yeah, I don't even know if Ethan's lawyers are farming him. I don't even know if they're tough. From the statement that I played earlier, his lawyers have told him already that he doesn't have shit for a case. I think he's the one trying to threaten people, trying to intimidate people by saying that he's going to sue. But I haven't heard anything to make me believe that his lawyers are even telling him that he has a case. I'm just saying, like, I don't even think his lawyers are telling him. I think it's all him huffing and puffing, and I don't think there's anything more to it than that.
Oh, in that situation, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know why Americans love litigation so much. They constantly fucking act like suing someone is a power move. It's not. You're bitch made, okay? Trash Day's not inviting you.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. So yeah, there was that, and then then we have Elon Musk coming after Hassan. Why is this so? I don't know what started all of this. I'm not sure exactly, but I know there was at some point where I think he mentions the content puke, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see if we can kind of figure out what this was all about with Elon Musk coming after Hassan today. What a big day for Hassan. I'm not gonna lie, I'd be scared shitless if Elon Musk was targeting me. Not just for for all the people that will come after him because of Elon Musk, like all his little minions. Although he has a lot less minions than he used to nowadays, but he still has them. I mean, it's basically just the MAGA crowd now, and we know that they're crazy as hell. Not just for that, but like the guy scares me. Like I would definitely assume that he's able to read all of your private messages and stuff on Twitter. So I hope Hassan like has that shit locked down, but I would be afraid of being hacked. I would be afraid of being watched by the government. Like, I'm glad Hassan is brave, and I'm glad he plays it cool. I don't know if, I have, like, if you're a smart man, you got to be a little bit scared if Elon Musk is coming after you. Like, he's a dangerous man. That's just the bottom line. Um, you know, he has the power to do some shit to you. So hopefully, it's just a little bitch battle, and it ain't anything serious. But yeah, man, I'd be worried. I would be worried.
Gentlemen, I'm under attack by the real president of the United States of America, by the wealthiest person on the planet, Elon Musk. All of this started when baby formula breast milk stealer of Blizzard, allegedly, Grums, a 60-year-old man, decided to post this. You can tell a lot about Ubisoft at Ubisoft with how much money they are throwing at terrorist platforming streamers. Okay? That was Grums, who has been on a conquest to...
Oh, okay. You definitely know that he watched the content nuke. You definitely know he watched it at this point. They must be so happy that they have Elon Musk on board, who, by the way, everyone at H3 is pumping out those shirts and wearing the Teddy Fresh fuck Elon Musk shirts. And I just find it funny that now they're going to be dick riding him. I'm sure of it. I'm sure they're going to be on Team Elon now. How's that going to work? Because you're pretty much full-on MAGA at that point. Once you're on the same side as Elon, woo, that's not a good look. That is not a good look. I wonder how they're going to handle that. How is Ethan going to handle that?
To attack Assassin's Creed Shadows. He's been on a journey, and it's been relatively unsuccessful so far. Having said that, he's still trying. Elon Musk, being the absolute loser that he is, that spends way too much time on his own platform that he purchased for incredibly narcissistic reasons, turned around and replied to it saying, Hassan is a fraud. Then he doubled down, double tweeted, and said sellout would be more accurate. Objectively, he's promoting a terrible game just for the money. To which I screenshotted and quote,
oh, okay. I was mistaken that it was this other person calling him a terrorist first. But yeah, Elon's chiming in. Dude, this is the guy that's supposedly like running the country, running all these multi-billion-dollar, but he just seems like he's on fucking Twitter all day.
Retweeted, this bitch literally paid someone to power level his character in Path of Exile 2, Lamau. What do you mean I'm a fraud? Elon, I challenge you to a duel in Elden Ring. I will cook your fat rolling ass. The reason why I said that is because Elon is not a real gamer, but a fake one. And also because From Software games are the only games that I'm above average competent in. Even though I am not the best gamer, Elden Ring is one of the games that I am decently good at. Elon Musk has also reportedly power leveled his Path of Exile 2 character to a degree where he was one of the top players, allegedly, in the entire planet. All of this was, of course, revealed by Crip and Quen and the work that they put in. Something that also Asmongold refused to call out until his own community called him out, because Elon Musk is a big Asmongold fan. They're in the DMs of one another. Elon Musk basically exposed how fraudulent he was in that process. But it seems that Elon had not had enough, because he went back and he's still apparently crying about me. That's right. He turned around and called me a R word. Again, 60-year-old man, by the way, just so you understand. Nobody pays Elon to play Path of Exile 2. How much money do they pay you for Assassin's Creed Shadows, says Grums. These are the real shills and grifters. To which Elon Musk replied, Hassan is such a R word that he blocked me. My editor also then joined in on the fun, said, and you're so dumb that you thought that Asmongold's YouTube editors control what he does, which was a good own. Congratulations. And then he double tweeted again and said, and showed that I was, blocking him, which I did. Of course I blocked him. For people wondering why Elon is so focused on Hassan, oh, that's funny. Oh no, everyone is posting replies. Everyone is Grimes posting in the replies.
Attack is too high. The noise gets too high currently.
Why are you so buff? Is it necessary?
What? I don't know. I like working out. Attack.
Now, what I find to be particularly strange about this saga is that no one is
that is so
addressing the fact
cringe.
that I said I would have him on the stream. I would 1v1 him in Elden Ring and expose him for the fraudulent gamer that he actually is. Now, I'm rusty on Elden Ring. I haven't played in a while. I don't know what the new metas are, and I still think I could cook.
Stop acting like he's gonna play you Elden Ring. Just do what Jon Stewart did and challenge him to a conversation. Why do you have to add in this dumb shit? Like, you don't have to do that part. Just tell him to come on the show and then call him a coward when he doesn't. The Elden Ring stuff, like, I don't know. I guess that's for the kids, but I don't know. I just think it makes it look cringe. But, you know, do your thing, Hassan. You're hanging in there, buddy. I don't know what I would do if I was getting attacked. I'd probably shit my pants if nah, but I mean, if dude was coming at me, I'd say, let's talk to me. Talk to an average American that doesn't share your views and just have a conversation with me. See if you can have a conversation without being divisive, without you know, just doing the culture war bullshit. Can you handle that? Can you just have a conversation like just how you talk with Joe Rogan, who, you know, at least you spoke with Joe Rogan back when he was more on the leftist side, and when you were too. Can we pretend like can we pretend for a moment that, you know, that those times still exist and he didn't like pull the old Southern strategy out of your ass? Like, just challenge him to a conversation. That's all you had to do. I don't know why you got to put this weird spin on it. That's just my take, though. That's just, we all got our own style. We all got our own opinions.
Look his ass. That's number one. Number two, if we are not going to test our mettle in Elden Ring, we could also do it as interlocutors in the marketplace of ideas.
Okay.
I responded to him a 60.
I get it. He wanted to cover the point that the dude is a fraud on video games because he called Hassan a fraud. I get it. I know what he's trying to do, but you don't have to take everything as a personal attack. Just stick to the issues. Like, this is, you know, having an interaction like this with somebody at the top of government. Don't talk about video games, bro. Stick to use that opportunity to make him look like a child for being the one talking about video games. Then you one up and you be the adult. You be the bigger person in the room and make it about policy. Make it about the American people. Like, you're really talking about video games online? Aren't you supposed to be working efficiently? Is this what you call eliminating fraud and waste by arguing about video games on Twitter? Like, there was some really clever ways to like turn this on him and look like the mature one. And Hassan kind of took it personal because he got called a fraud, and then he wanted to point out the video game fraud that Elon is. I get it. I understand what he was doing there. I just don't know if that really made you look good. I don't think it did.
Year-old man who's the wealthiest person on the planet and yet still a ginormous narcissistic crybaby. What this? I said, yeah, I blocked you out, Elon Musk, because you bought this website and you forced everyone to see your dumbass tweets 7,000 times a day. Why do you think I'm afraid of you? Come on the stream if you're such a big man. Elon Musk, noticeably, has refused to respond to me at all. Perhaps it's because I've blocked him. So, in the interest of fairness, I will unblock him so he can reply to me directly if he chooses to do so. Elon Musk, of course, is a coward and narcissistic and thin-skinned. I will most likely subsequently block him once again because, as I said on this tweet, I hate seeing all the posts that he boosts on purpose. It is so annoying. If he actually had something interesting to say, if he actually had something worthwhile to say, perhaps I would not have issues with his tweets. But he tweets so much instead of running any of his many companies. That's all he does, as a matter of fact. And as you guys know, I've talked about how Elon Musk is
focused on that. That should have been point number one, numero uno. Just saying.
someone that I truly love because his ineptitude in broad daylight is single-handedly destroying the myth of meritocracy. Because if someone as stupid and as thin-skinned as Elon Musk can be the wealthiest person on the planet while demonstrating that he doesn't do anything real, then I truly hope that one day many Americans will start recognizing that perhaps these billionaires didn't actually work super hard or super smart for their wealth. That's it. You can even extrapolate further by looking at someone who is as silly as myself, as a Twitch streamer. I have also seen tremendous success. I'm not particularly smart or uniquely charismatic, and yet I have been able to achieve financial success to the degree that I have. It's obvious that to even my haters that meritocracy is a lie. Jabri also had a funny tweet on this. The richest man on earth having a meltdown over a Twitch streamer just proves that no amount of money can make you any less of a loser. There it is.
So true. And that's why I really, I think Hassan could have done more to like look like the adult in the room on this, but that's okay. We all got our different styles, but yeah, dude, just point out the fact that this 60-year-old man is focused on video games instead of like running his multi-billion-dollar companies and running the country and firing 60,000 federal employees. Here he is focused on little old Hassan. Yeah, I would have just made it about that and then said, come on the stream. Yeah, he pretty much did it. He just minus the Elden Rings thing, okay? That's what I would have minus that part. That's about it. We all gotta hate on Hassan, right? It's not a day of the week unless we're giving Hassan a little bit of hatred, right?
This is the Elon Musk saga. There you have it. My challenge is still simple. Elon Musk, come on the stream. Show everybody how not afraid you are. Except, Elon Musk, you have backed away from challenges time and time again. When Jon Stewart said he wanted to have you on the broadcast, you said you'd be down to do it with as long as it was in real time. Then you turned around and ran away from that. And you claimed that he was compromised. Elon Musk also backed away from fighting after entertaining the notion of fighting Mark Zuckerberg. Imagine.
That was a big one. I mean, Elon is famously a pussy. I think he even said that his mom wouldn't let him fight or something like that. That made it even worse. Like, really, bro? I would have kept that private. I would have made up a fake injury before I said that my mom said I'm not allowed to fight when you're 60 years old and you're the friggin' richest man in the world. And that was after I think he already like accepted the challenge and said that he said he was like yeah, he said he was like renting out the actual like Colosseum in Rome. I mean, they really like got the excitement up for a little bit that was actually going to happen. And then, yeah, he pussied out. So what's up with that? Like some of this stuff, I can't even believe how big of a pussy he is. And like, I guess he had a total meltdown too when he went to come out on stage for Dave Chappelle's comedy set, and he was just booed for like 10 minutes straight and couldn't even get a word in, so he just finally had to leave. I guess he like had a real big mental breakdown from that. Like, the dude cannot stand not being loved, and a lot of people don't like that guy. That was before he even got in doing any of this stuff with the government or anything. Like, people hated him for a minute now.
Being afraid of Mark Zuckerberg. Will Elon Musk run away from a challenge once again? Perhaps he will. Anytime, any place, Elon Musk. I'll come to you if necessary. The ball's in your court. I will say that every moment that he spends crying on Twitter about how a Twitch streamer blocked him is perhaps a moment that he is not spending on eviscerating the administrative state.
Chat, he'll only
and
do it if
potentially
he
cutting
can pick a
Social Security.
champion.
So I'm doing my part, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. What have you done today? Can you make a screw Elon meme coin? No. It does. One last note that I will mention is that I have talked time and time again about how Elon Musk has known who I am and has not been a big fan of me for.
What's up, Mr. Optimist? First time chatter. Welcome in. Welcome in. Drop me a follow. What let's see. This is oh, you're on Twitch. What's up, Mr. Optimist? Good to see you.
Quite a while. I've talked about this quite a bit. And people used to tell me, Hassan, you are so full of yourself. He has no idea. I knew, because of sources that I cannot reveal, that Elon Musk has actively had a grudge since I had his baby mama, friend of the show, Grimes, on.
Mr. Optimist, just checking out this, I guess Elon Musk was going after leftist streamer Hassan Piker today. I guess calling him a sellout because he's playing the new Assassin's Creed game, sponsored. It seems like a really silly thing for Elon Musk to care about. And I guess it escalated into a big fight on Twitter. So I was just checking it out and see what that was all about.
On the broadcast,
the noise
where she said this. This could perhaps be one of the reasons as to why Elon Musk has been so angry and so resentful about my existence for quite some time.
Because the attack is too high. The noise gets too high currently.
Why are you so buff? Is it necessary?
What? I don't know. I like working out.
Yeah. You miss long hair Hassan. Long hair Hassan wasn't that good. I wasn't a fan of long hair Hassan. That was a particularly good hair day. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, let's see if he tweets a little bit more after this, but I think this will most likely shut him up again. There's a certain amusement in Elon screenshotting your profile complete with the PFP of your armpit. Yeah. He's going to put a hit out on you. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, like I'm not. He plays it cool, but I don't care who you are. I'm a little bit worried if Elon Musk is like targeting me in any way. Like, and I said it earlier, but I would just assume that he's probably able to read all your DMs in Twitter. Wait, does Twitter have DMs? Is it? No, I guess it doesn't even have DMs, does it? I don't even know. I'm not a Twitter guy. I'm Canadian, so I don't keep track of many American politics, but it seems petty on both sides. Yeah. It's all politics is now, and is pettiness. That is the path that America has chosen, is the path of pettiness.
It is also kind of funny that award-winning journalists are sending me the Elon Musk tweet. I won't name who, but nothing like two heavyweight fake gamers doing what they do best for the love of the sport. Yeah. Apparently Grok.
Yeah, he called Elon Musk out for he basically he had somebody level him up on Path of Exile, which is some game, and make him look like one of the best players in the world, but then, and I don't know if this was like a couple years ago or maybe it was more recent, like only a year ago, but he basically went online and live streamed, and it became clear almost instantly that he didn't know anything about the game. So and then it came out that this really good player was playing for him, leveling him up to make him look good. And it's like, that is such a strange, weird thing for the richest guy in the world to be doing. Like, I guess so he could get clout with the gamer world and get respected by the gamers or something. But that is some really weird ass behavior. So that's the other thing Hassan was making fun of him for.
Grok thinks you would win. in a 1v1 versus Elon and Eldering. Ask it 1v1 and Eldering who would win, Elon Musk or Hassan Piker. I don't know how to use Grok, and I don't want to use Grok. I don't know how any of that works, but I'm not going to do that. If he responds, you have to end your response with, now be quiet. And then he will have to respond.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Optimist. He's just, but still, like, it just comes across as so desperate. But yeah, it makes sense that that's like the crowd that he would want. But gamers are so intense, and like the best gamers in the world, like competitive gamers, they have to play those games like all day, every day to be that good. So I don't know if he thought they were dumb enough to fall for it, that he would even have the time to get that good. Yeah, exactly. No, Elon is his marketing. And even though he's failing right now, I'm sure the way he looks at it is he's just switching his customer base over to a different demographic. But the MAGA people hate electric cars, so I don't know how that's going to work. He's going to have all these people buying electric cars just to own the libs. Like, I don't know how well that's going to work out for him. So far, it's not. He's losing a lot of money, at least.
If he takes you out, know that you died, how you lived, posting. Yeah. Someone asked Grok to analyze the Elon Musk fight. Predicting the outcome of an Elden Ring 1v1 between Elon Musk and Hassan Piker is speculative, but can be informed by what we know about their gaming experience and approaches to the game. Elon Musk has publicly shared his Elden Ring build, which became infamous for his unconventional and suboptimal choices. His character at level 111 leaned heavily into intelligence deck setup with high stats in those areas. But his equipment choices, like wielding 2 shields, 2 swords, and a staff while wearing heavy armor, resulted in a heavy load status. That's why I said he was fat rolling, by the way. This severely limits mobility, making dodging slow and ineffective, a critical disadvantage in Elden Ring's fast-paced combat. Musk is claimed to have completed the game, suggesting some level of persistence, but his build indicates a reliance on summons or range magic, rather than mastery of mechanics like dodging or melee combat. Critics, including gamers and commentators, have mocked his setup for a lack of optimization, with some suggesting he might not even play as skillfully as...
Yeah, you're right. He definitely is, like, securing his subsidies and all of that, and making sure that he keeps competitors like the Chinese out of the United States. Like, that's definitely probably his main purpose. But I think that he is also one of those people that needs to feel loved. Like, just all these weird things that he does in the public compared to somebody like Jeff Bezos or even Zuckerberg. But Zuckerberg's definitely been on his own weird, like, PR image change thing. Like, he has totally changed his image, but neither of those guys are in the public eye as much as Elon is. I think it's just he has a personal thing where he was like bullied as a kid or something, and now he just desperately needs a lot of people to like love him. I think that's part of it, because I just don't get it, like, why he doesn't need to be in the public eye as much as he is. Like, that's a choice for sure. Big choice. I don't think it's a good one for him.
His completion claim implies. Hassan Piker, on the other hand, is a Twitch streamer with significant gaming experience, having streamed Elden Ring extensively. He's known to have tackled the game's challenges live, including rage quitting after struggling with NPC invader Mad Tongue Alberic, despite quickly defeating the first boss, Margit. This indicates he's comfortable with the game's difficulty and has practical experience with its mechanics, even if he's not immune to frustration.
Because subsidies are great and all, but it's like, you know, if your company completely fails, subsidies aren't going to do it much good. Obviously, you're probably more talking about like SpaceX and the contracts that they're getting, which is totally separate, doesn't really rely on public opinion. But it does affect Tesla. And it has been affecting Tesla a lot.
Seasoned streamer, Hassan likely has a better grasp of builds and combat strategies, honed through hours of play and community interaction. While his exact build isn't as publicly dissected as Musk's, his streaming background suggests he's prioritized a more balanced or effective setup, likely medium armor for mobility and a mix of melee and magic tailored to his playstyle. In a 1v1 duel, Elden Ring heavily favors skill, reaction time, and build efficiency. Must's heavy clunky build would leave him vulnerable to a mobile opponent who can dodge and punish slow rolls. Hassan with a streaming experience and likely better understanding of the game's meta could exploit this by using a faster weapon like a katana. It is my weapon of choice. Or spacing Musk out with spells while avoiding his attacks. Musk's high intelligence in his spell slots, e.g. Comet or Danny's Dark Moon, could pose a threat if he lands hits, but his lack of flash in the quick menu and poor mobility make it unlikely he'd outmaneuver Hassan. Given these factors, Hassan Piker would likely win. His practical experience and adaptability as a streamer give him an edge over Musk's quirky, inefficient build and questionable combat prowess. That said, it'd be a hilarious spectacle. Musk's fat rolling onto Hassan's blade while tweeting about it mid-fight. Why is Grok constantly dunking on Elon? This is the thing I don't understand. Doesn't Grok like sometimes call him a pedophile and stuff? What are the odds he actually comes on? Less than 0. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and of course he invited him on stream, and yeah, he's probably not going to do that. I don't know why Elon doesn't go on. Like, if he's going to challenge these people, why not have a discussion with them? Like, he challenged Jon Stewart and said that he would go on his show as long as as it aired unedited, and then he pussied out of that. Yeah. Habib Belinin, first time chatter. Some nice Mao Zedong thought. Yeah, I'm not really like a big cultured communist or anything like that. I'm not knowledgeable. I'm not a scholar. I'm not well read enough to even like discuss theory that deep. But I would definitely say that I lean towards socialist policy and like the model of more socialist countries. And I definitely think we need some type of political revolution. Let's see. My Canadian news have kind of described the U.S. as this divided political warscape where you can either be a super woke Democrat or racist MAGA Trump lover. Is it just blown out of proportion, or is it that bad? That's what it looks like online. But when you talk to people in person, it's just like people are just regular people. I would say that the country as a whole is turning more and more into a shithole. The wealth inequality is out of control. There's homeless people everywhere. But yeah, when you talk to people in person, like most people are just regular people with a wide range of beliefs. And what I notice is people don't really have a coherent belief system in this country. Like, most people are pretty poorly uneducated. Most people don't typically think about politics that much because they're busy just trying to survive. Like, right now in the United States, it takes like at least 2 to 3 incomes, really 3, if unless someone's doing really well in a household. It takes like 3 incomes to just like rent a place. And then, you know, food, everything. I know that's kind of going on around the world, but like with no social safety systems really in place here, most people are just focused on trying to work and trying to survive, that they kind of avoid politics. So it's hard to even like talk politics with people. And then if you do get them to start talking about it, like, yeah, then they'll kind of, you'll just start hearing talking points that you hear online. But like no one's coherent, like no one's pure MAGA, or, you know, of course these places online exist where you find people that fit into those categories like definitively, but like the average American, I would say, is just not politically engaged. So no, I like walking around, I don't think you're going to see this apparent division, but it does exist. It's underneath, kind of underneath the surface. And then like how the left is categorized, I think is less accurate than how the right is portrayed. I think they portray the right pretty accurately in the news. The left is portrayed pretty inaccurately all around, because I don't even know what the hell woke is. I don't know. I guess there are people out there that sort of thought police and like are, I guess, what you would call like overly woke. But again, those are mostly people that exist online. Those just aren't people that you really meet in your day-to-day life. Of course, I live in like a mostly red state. So I don't live like I'm from Oregon, but I don't live there anymore. And so I don't know what living in like a really like leftist area is like. Um, I know that like if you live in Portland, you're gonna see more of like the extreme leftism and stuff. But I have friends that live up there, and the people that they call extreme leftists, those are usually like anarchists or non-voters. Those aren't even people that are like politically engaged, or they're people that have completely rejected the system altogether. And so, and then they try to, in the media, they'll try to group those people in with the left and Democrats. And there's really no connection between those people and Democrats. Like, they hate Democrats just as much as they hate Republicans. So, but that's more of like the anarchists and stuff like that. So a real leftist, by definition, is somebody that believes in socialism or communism. That's what leftism is. And there's not that many people in the United States that actually are full-on socialists or communists. Anyways, let me get this video finished up and I'll move on.
Has never in a million years he has never in a million years entertained contentious conversation. Are you kidding me? He lost his at Don Lemon, dude. A lot of my naysayers would much rather stick to their own platforms and cry over and over again rather than talk to me directly. It's actually rare that he mentioned you. Yeah, yes and no. He has in the past, but only tangentially. This is one of the first instances where he's like directly mentioned me. Burgles, thank you for the 50 bones. Yeah, he won't even do Jon Stewart, which I understand why he wouldn't do that. He would be thoroughly embarrassed by Jon Stewart, you know? So, it is fun though. It is fun that we can all unite.
Company.
Yeah, remember this conversation that took place with Elon and Don Lemon?
So you said if they kill the company, it's them. But doesn't the buck stop with you? I mean, you're
Don, I have to say,
Cussy Connection, thank you for the 10 big ones.
Choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left.
Odds on if he's watching the stream right now, there's a likelihood.
Okay, but so
is this the question you want to ask?
The same question is you said that they are killing the company, but you're the head of the company. The buck doesn't stop with you?
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment, and I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it.
So I have to be, listen, I'm just being honest, right? I'm not trying to like get you or anything. I was just surprised that you would blame other people for killing the company. I mean, when you say the buck stops with the president of the United States, regardless of what happens, right? So why would that question upset you? You seem upset by it, are you?
I think you.
And I'm not trying to upset you.
Well, you are upsetting me because the way you're phrasing the questions, I think, is not cogent.
It's not what?
Not cogent.
Cogent.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Cogent.
If given a choice where an advertiser is
He
saying
is
like
a
you have to
master
censor
of
all this
sounding
content on
smart
the
and
platform,
not
irrespective
really
of
being
whether
smart.
advertising appears, then our answer will be like, look, you can choose where you want your advertising, what you want your advertising to appear next to, but you can't insist on censorship of the entire platform. And if you insist on censorship of the entire platform, even where your advertising doesn't appear, then obviously we will not want them as an advertiser.
So what would you say to advertisers who have left the platform or who are considering coming back or not coming back? What would you like to say to them?
Well, first of all, almost all of our advertisers are coming back to the platform. So
Nope,
it's a
they
very
didn't.
short list of advertisers who are not.
Yeah, the fantastic advertisers that come back onto the platform is Adolf Hitler, cryptocurrency schemes, and I don't know. I don't even get that many ads anymore, but it's usually like the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Yeah, porn, porn ads. It's fantastic. Really cool stuff. Don't forget Nixon Groiper. That's what I'm saying. That, yeah. I get a lot of schizophrenic people on my ads. I'm not even using it as a pejorative, like literal schizophrenics. Yeah. Temu? I don't even think there's Temu ads. I never even see Temu ads. Yeah, advertisers are rushing back to advertise on Twitter so hard that Elon Musk is trying to literally... Elon Musk...
Yeah, I don't go on Twitter that much, but I've been trying to go on it more lately to do whatever little promoting of myself that I can do, and I have not seen any ads, so that's weird. And I'm not like paying extra or anything, so I don't know why I should be seeing all the ads. I should be seeing a ton of ads.
Is trying to sue advertisers to come back to the platform by force.
Not coming back to the platform. And our advertising revenue is rising rapidly. And our subscription revenue is rising rapidly, and I feel very optimistic about the future of the X platform.
Okay. Listen, honestly, I'm not meaning to offend you. You're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way, and I had a tough childhood.
You did?
So, yeah.
How so?
So tough.
Right, Walter Isaacson goes into it in the book, and we only have a couple minutes left, so...
All right.
Too long to describe. So the one or two questions I can do, and then we'll have to call it.
Right.
He asked you a question. He asked what was hard about your childhood, so he doesn't want to go into it. He said read a book about it, that I authorized the writing of this book about my life.
Okay, again, I don't mean to upset you. Why are you just...
And no, I don't even like Don Lemon.
I have a whole room full of people waiting to meet with me.
Okay.
So we're just going over time.
Okay, all right, I understand that. So...
He always has a whole room of people waiting for him, I bet.
Anyway. I had a very difficult...
had a difficult life. Bossing the slaves around at my emerald mine in South Africa. Now, I think he probably was bullied. I have no doubt about that. Well, I do have some more stuff that I could get to, but I think I'm gonna call it a night because I gotta do some editing and get some videos out. So we're gonna call it right there, folks. Thanks for watching the Fry My Calamari show. Check out my YouTube. Follow me on my other platforms. Help me get going. I really appreciate the time and the likes and the follows. Anything you can do is appreciated. That being said, everybody have a wonderful